Hi everyone, my name is Aidan Potts. I am the owner of Hunter Performance Centre and I'm a proud Camillo man identifying as an Aboriginal male from Tamworth, New South Wales. I'm a member of the Tamworth Aboriginal Land Council and therefore I am able to give a welcome to country. However today, because we are at the Wallsend Diggers, I am unable to give a proper welcoming, therefore I will provide an acknowledgement of country because I am not from the Awabakal land which we are lifting on this weekend. It would simply be like inviting you all into a home that I do not own, providing shelter, warmth, clothes, food. It'd all be a little bit rude if I was to actually give a welcome to country, so today it will only be an acknowledgement. Today I'll just be providing an acknowledgement to country where the Australian Powerlifting Alliance National Series will be held here at Wallsend Diggers, Newcastle. To be able to recognise our First Nations people by hosting such a prestigious event is not only significant to me, but to the rest of our community here in the Hunter. I believe that the support shown to the Australian Powerlifting Alliance by the huge participation rate, which we have for our entire national series, also recognises and celebrates that. I would like to thank all the people who have protected and preserved the land and water for both you and I. I refer to the land you live on over this weekend of competition, the land where you will lay your head, the land where you'll be hitting all your PRs. Awabakal country is the eastern lands and water of New South Wales, as north as Newcastle and as south as Lake Macquarie, covering 1,800 square kilometres. I would like to pay my respects to my elders past and present of the Awabakal country. For more than 70,000 years, the elders have hunted, fished and gathered resources to live upon these lands. It is the elders who are the ones who have allowed us to grow in a safe, rich environment to live, learn and eventually powerlift. And for that, thank you to my Awabakal brothers and sisters who have allowed us to be able to cherish these moments over this weekend ahead of the 2024 Australian Powerlifting Alliance National Series. Wishing you all the best and a very happy 9 for 9 on that platform.
All right, welcome everyone to the afternoon session here on Saturday at the APA 2024 National Series. This afternoon, you'll have the 105 kilo gentleman. And with me in the box this afternoon, got one and only Matthew Bartholomew. How you going, Matty?
Good. Excited. Really excited. Been a busy weekend. Been a fun weekend. It's been a very well-run weekend. A lot going on. Very excited for where things are going with APA, and 105s are going to be hot.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every session so far this weekend, maybe bar one, we've had some amazing battles. The unexpected has happened.
Yep.
There's been upsets. I mean, people we hadn't even pegged to be on the podium coming in and taking first place in some weight classes. Absolutely insane. The quality of lifting has been really good. The standard of reffing has been right up there. And, been some amazing performances.
Absolutely. Let's begin today by acknowledging the Awabakal people, the traditional custodians of the land where the 2024 Australian Powerlifting Alliance National Series is held. I'd like to pay my respects to their elders past and present. I extend that respect to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people here today.
Thanks, Matt. All right, look, guys, we're a couple minutes away. Just had the final warning for any changes at the first flight. So we're under 3 minutes away from the first squat, where Truong will take us away with 190 kilos on the bar. So you got a couple of minutes, grab yourself some water, strap on in.
Oh, yeah.
Have a couple hours session for you this afternoon, on the Saturday afternoon. We'll be right back with the lifting.
All right, we're live and good to go, starting with Truong on the squat with a 190 kilo opener. For the folks tuning in at home, it's really important that on our opener lifts, we're getting on the board, for starters, ticking all the boxes the referees want us to tick, and starting our day smoothly. Strong reversal out of the hole there for Trong. Let's see what the referees think about that. We've got 2 reds from the side referees, which here will mean he didn't quite squat deep enough. We're wanting to get the hip crease below the top of the knee, and he was just a little bit shy there, so it's important that he gets deep enough in his second attempt. He may choose to retake that or go up a little bit. Depends on the strategy of the coach.
Yeah, for sure. Just looked that touch higher. Probably got the parallel, but not quite below it from the front. So he'll readjust, get the nerves out of the system, go for the second.
Absolutely, and I think it's important to note that referees are looking from the best possible angle on the side, and that it matters how deep you get, but also matters to some degree the body language as you're going down. If you're sort of pulling up and slowing down, it can look a bit high.
Yeah. Good squat here for Josh.
Josh done really well there with 190 kilos for an opener, and if the referees are happy with that, he'll be on the board with 190. 3 white lights, so we can see a contrast there in depth, where referees are more than happy to give 3 whites for that.
Yeah, there's that odd lifter that kind of almost pauses in the bottom. They spend a lot of time there. It gives the ref a long time to look at that position, and it can often go against them if they're not bang on the money. Absolutely.
Obviously, first and foremost is getting to depth. I mean, no matter how you're behaving, if you get to depth, you're going to be good. But it does matter, to some degree, what sort of body language you have. This is something that's important to note. So we have 225 kilos here for Callum coming out to open his day at Nationals with a strong squat. And hopefully we're seeing lots of white lights on these openers, and all these gents have a really good start to their day. Okay, really nice squat there. Something to observe in Callum's squat is that he stands upright at the beginning of the squat so that he can tick the boxes for that squat call, and then he bends over, gets into a new position, and then goes to his descent, which is a really smart way of doing things if he likes that bent over position to start. However, if he were to start in that one, he actually wouldn't achieve a squat call and be able to start at all. He did receive 1 red, which again would indicate a bit of a depth issue, but he does get that lift because he got 2 white lights. The light system is majority rules. So if the lifter gets 2 white lights or 2 red lights, they're all good or all bad. It's important to note that 1 decision of the 3 doesn't make a difference. Angus here with 225 kilos for his opener squat. Strong out of the hole. Crowd's here for him, that's for sure. Angus has got a few friends and family who've showed up here at Wallsend Diggers in Newcastle. We do have a miss there. We have a couple of misses on the openers here of the 105s, which I can't say is common at Nationals. So it's something that we're definitely going to have to see how those coaches and athletes react. But we do tend to see, people sinking and really getting 3 white lights to start their day. We'll see how the rest of the lifters come along.
Matthew Shield coming out now for 230. Yeah, I think it's been such a long time since we've had a Nationals as well. We've got a lot of new lifters their first Nationals and just really adjusting to that national standard of reffing.
Yeah, I've noticed that.
Yeah, I know I found it hard yesterday in my flight for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a great point, is that over time, as the Nationals events build, the standard is known, the training changes, the local competition standard, all those things rise, and we do start to see people coming in and nailing those opener standards. So again, we have a miss here, 3 reds, which means that all referees were very clear that this wasn't quite deep enough, and we'll have to make some improvements for seconds there.
Yeah, he moves it easy enough, so strength's definitely there. We'll see whether he goes up a little bit, might help push him into the bottom a little bit more, or whether he sticks at that 230 and goes again.
Yeah, you always have a bit of a tough decision to make, especially at a national event. For those watching at home, if you do go up from an opener that you've missed, you always risk missing that as well and then being stuck with that heavier load because you are not allowed to go down after you've taken an increase. So a lot of times coaches will get the lifter to retake the number just for assurances at a national event so that they don't bomb out. Bombing out is if you miss all 3 of a discipline, you essentially get disqualified.
Yeah, it's a good point. I don't think we've had anyone bomb yet this weekend, so definitely don't want to be the first to do it.
Happy to hear that, and I'd love to see that trend hold up. We saw 3 whites there. That was Christopher, wasn't it?
Was.
Yep, awesome. With a great opener. So that's what we're looking for. 3 whites, deep, solid, good starting positions. Again, just to sort of reflect on a few of the rules, depth is really important. The starting position is really important. You must be, quote unquote, standing upright. And that is up to the side ref's discretion. And you'll notice that the side refs have their hands up. Then they lower their hands to indicate to the head ref that they are happy with the start position. Then the head ref gives the squat call. Josh here has a great energy about his lifting. He's been doing really well in his training. I follow Josh personally. Some of these guys here I know quite well, others not so well. So it'd be good to see how Josh turns out today. Let's check it out. Deep. Very deep squat. You can see that. And, I'm not going to call those too often if I think they're borderline, but that was a very deep squat and you would expect what happened, which is 3 whites for Josh on 240 kilos.
Yeah, absolutely. Unquestionable there for Josh.
Something that I find really interesting when it comes to depth is noticing how people get to depth with different leverages.
Mm-hmm.
And again, this is something to pay attention to at home. And I think that it's a very powerlifting thing to see different torso leans, different footwear, different bar positions that allows that lifter to get to depth. And it's cool to watch because, you see one person super upright, knee shoved forward. Someone else has got to lean over, very, very close to horizontal to get there. So it's awesome to watch that.
Here goes Kevin. 240 for his opener.
Very strong from Kevin there. Let's see what the referees think about that one.
Yeah, and we've seen quite a few people get chipped, not actually get the squat command this weekend for starting in too much of a forward lean position or not quite locking the knees. So it's you got to really nail down that start position. And then if you want to move into that more advantageous lean, etc., you do that after you get the squat command.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see it again in these seconds. That we did have one gentleman who was doing that. It's one good one to note. And the thing about it is one of those rules that can be somewhat ambiguous. There is a line in the referee's mind where they're happy because a low bar squat, the nature of a low bar squat is that there is some degree of acceptable lean. When you get some excessive low bar squats, we've seen a lot of the international lifters, the French lifters going for this excessive low bar squat. That's when you begin to push the boundary and you take the risk of potentially being told, re-rack the bar. That's the last thing you want to hear when you're about to do a squat. So Let's see how we go. Hoping for 3 whites here, 200 for Truong. That is looking better. Let's see what we have.
Yeah, a touch deeper there from the front.
It is a touch deeper.
Hopefully from the side it looked convincing.
Hoping for him, he's good. Again, we have a no lift there, and we did see that increase from 190 kilos to 200 kilos. So now we have a situation where Truong is going to have to decide, do I stay at 200 and sink it, or do I stay to my original plan and try to get a PB, but risk bombing?
Absolutely.
I really hope in this situation that we're seeing a repeat of that second and a security of that lift. Personally, I hope we see that.
Yeah, I mean, you see it in the replay. He's bang on parallel, but he's not below. And he really needs to get a hip crease below the top of the knee.
Yep, and I have no doubts he can with that load.
Yeah.
Do I think if he goes plus 10, he might be in the same situation? I would think that would be a tough ask. So let's see how we go. Hopefully Truong can make it happen for the third.
Absolutely. Josh McCurry here, 205 on the bar for his second.
Very sound, nice moving second. We expect to see a little bit of work going on in the seconds, but a little bit of room, obviously. And this is definitely ticking that box.
Yeah, starting to move up in that sort of 8.5 out of 10 that we're sort of looking for in terms of perceived exertion.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, for all of those sitting at home who have no idea what we just said, RPE, or a rate of perceived exertion, is a commonly used metric by lifters to sort of indicate how hard that was and what they have left out of 10. And that can be, in kilos left, reps left. So in this situation, we're looking at a lift that, might have had a rep in the tank and so might have 7 to 12 kilos in the tank. And that's up to the coach and the lifter to assess, look at training data, and then pick the right numbers. So that looked like definitely a solid squat, but a bit of room for sure. And we have Matthew here who came out to a 230 squat, made a different decision to Truong and his coach, coming out to retake to make sure he gets on the board. He's driven that in. It moved nicely. Hopefully we can see some white lights here for Matthew with his 230 second attempt. and we have 3 white lights. That's always nice to see.
Yeah, he buried that one. Great work, Matthew. Come back out from missing the first on depth and grabbing that one on the second.
And hopefully we can start to see what we were talking about earlier with regard to body language and how the lifter moves through space when they hit depth. You can see he's committed.
Yeah,
Really
absolutely.
committed to that squat, and it shows in the ruling from the referees.
Callum Rush here now, 2.35 on the bar for his second, taking a 10-kilo jump.
As we move along to third attempts, which is a fair while away yet, we will start to look at lifter data of previous PRs to give the viewers at home an insight into what's this lift relative to their previous best. But for now, we're just building up. Essentially, this is warming up to those maxes.
Great lift there from Callan. And you'll see that that forward lean we talked about before, where Callan gets the squat command and then he moves into that lean position.
Yeah, spot on. And it comes down to being as balanced as possible. And like we said before, different leverages are going to lift differently. So it's really good to see a lifter who has, I guess, adjusted little nuances of their lift to make it work for them. I love to see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Really trying to get that bar over the midfoot so we can get a nice hard push out of the bottom.
Absolutely. Now, this is another situation like Truong earlier. Angus has gone from a 225 miss to a 240 second attempt. Fair game if you get it. Let's see how he goes.
Yeah, big jump, but he's a big lad, so let's see how he goes.
Very deep. Very, very deep there. I'm very confident we're going to see some whites here, which is lovely.
Yeah, it looked a lot better and still moved very nicely.
3 whites. Great. So again, a little bit of, I guess, gambling within powerlifting of what do you do if you miss an opener? It comes down to where you're going to stand in the day. We've seen lifters across the weekend missed openers and seconds and get thirds, Yuki's bench. So it comes down to what your priorities are in the day, I suppose.
Yeah, absolutely.
Christopher coming out for 242.5. Looks like at his last competition he squatted 245 and missed a 251. So it'd be great to see where he goes after this attempt. And it looked very tidy.
Cool. Yeah, it was a nice squat. Chris is training out of Performotion in Brisbane, I think.
Yeah, I believe so. I have seen he's done a lot of comps in the ACT, so...
Oh.
Might be one of those situations. I've made the mistake before of just assuming everyone from Perth's in Queensland.
True.
Not always the case. But a really good squat there, and hopefully we see him push into new territory on his third attempt.
Josh Dawson up now, 255 on the bar, 15-kilo jump from his first.
And we'll start to provide more and more context, like I said before, as to the best lifts. Previously, we see a 262.5 best squat from Josh at his previous competition. So this is, again, setting it up really nicely. Sing set.
Oh,
and
great.
Very, very nice drive through on that. Definitely looks like he has some solid kilos.
Yeah.
I would not be surprised to see a competition PR from Josh on the next attempt.
And just to note, if you are looking for your friends or family and you think, oh, geez, I haven't seen them in this flight, there is 2 flights of 105s this afternoon. We have a lot of 105s here. So if you haven't seen them in this flight, they'll be up next. So keep an eye out.
Absolutely. Really nicely done there from Kevin. Let's see what the referees have to say about his 255 second attempt. I haven't been able to pull PB data for Kevin, so we won't be able to comment on that. But we have 2-1. So this turn 2-1 is, as previously mentioned, the referees, there are 3. We have a 2-1 good or 2-to-1 make here, where 2 referees have said we're happy, white lights. 1 has said red, and that's why we have 3 referees to have this, majority rules situation and have the best possible fairness for the lifter. In this situation, we have a make. Okay, we've spoken a bit about Churong and his squat attempts. He's been a little bit high on the first 2, still continues to move upwards. With that, it does carry some risk. But we often see lifters rising to these occasions and making in these circumstances. We want to see him bury this and stand up.
Yeah, he just has to sink it.
He's gone much deeper there.
Yeah, absolutely.
And stood up quite easily as well.
See him really stretch into the bottom there just to try and get that last little bit of depth. There we go, 2-to-1.
2-to-1. So again, I would have to say that in this situation, he's pushing very, very hard into depth there. And you do have, another example of differing leverages. Some find it a little easier to make depth, some find it a little harder to make depth. But thank goodness we have a made lift there.
Yeah. Yeah, great to see him continue in the competition. All right, Josh McCurry coming up next, 215 on the bar.
Thank you. Just let me know and I'll mute it. All right. So we're back to openers here. We had a little brief intermission on our end there, sorting something out, but we're back to openers here. And we are excited to see the standards of this next flight. And we have the stronger lifters of the 105s on average. It's ordered that way, so the spotters and loaders aren't making crazy changes from one to the next. Makes sense from a competitive standpoint as well, that you're in the same flight as people who you are competitive with. And it's going to be a very interesting battle here. There are a number of lifters who are looking at going over 800. There are a couple more who'll get very close. We have Yanni, and we have Michael, and we have Tom, who are out the front, top three. And it's going to be very interesting. I'll talk you through every step of this battle in the 105s with the top three here. It'll be very interesting to see what decisions are made, how the execution is, and how the preps have gone, and how that reflects on the platform. Because when you're this strong, when you've done 822.5, Yanni and Michael, when you've done, I think, 805 or something similar for Tom, a really strong day or a little bit of a weak day can make quite a big difference.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see where the chips fall.
Yep.
I'm very excited. I've got a lot of stake in these 105s. Very, very interested in this class, being someone who wants to compete in the 105s in the future. So I'm excited to watch this. I hope everyone at home is pumped to see it. Daniel coming out now for a 252.5 squat opener. Daniel made strides at the latest New South Wales State competition. He total PR'd in a massive way. I'm fairly sure that he podiumed at that event and fought off a lot of lifters who were tussling for that podium place. Extremely nice squatting, and we often see some, more tempoed, more controlled lifting from Daniel. You'll notice some people move a little bit more bar speed, but for him, his preference is to move a little bit slower, stay in position, and it really works out for him.
Yeah, there's definitely a couple of schools of thought on that. Do you really wind the rubber band up and gather that energy out of the bottom, or do you really sink it in hard? And look, it's really about personal preference. What works for some people won't work at all for others. So.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Daniel came third at the New South Wales State Championships, and he scored a 280, bench pressed 177.5, and deadlifted 312.5 for a 770 total. So you can see Daniel getting quite close to 800 on a really good day today. I would say 800 would probably be a little out of reach unless he does something extraordinary, but it'll be really great to see how he builds his day out.
Yeah, absolutely.
For starters, if that was a 252.5 squat, he's opened 7.5 kilos heavier than state. So it'll be interesting to see if that displays at the top end.
Taj Smith out now from WA, 262.5 for his opener. Taj had a great prep as well. He's been moving really well. His peak week 10 days or so ago went really well.
Am I right in saying Taj comes from WA?
Yeah. Coached by Jacob. Just one ref there just kept his hand up. This knee definitely on this side, not quite locked at the start. But he had a 2-to-1.
Yep, so that's another important fact to note. The head referee is waiting for a majority of the referees to be happy with the start position. So if one of the side referees puts their hand down, that would indicate they're happy with the start position. If the head ref is also happy with the start position, they would give the squat command. They don't need to wait for the third referee to put their hand down. However, if there is something wrong with that start position, that referee is still entitled to give a red light at the end of the lift. So that's something that doesn't need to be aware of. Even if they get a squat command, they could still cop a red, and let's say they miss depth on one side because they have some differences from hip to hip. You could end up with two reds for two different reasons.
Absolutely.
So it's important to note.
Samuel Forsberg now 265. Very nice looking opener. Nice and fast.
Extremely strong there from Sam. Sam was in that tussle with Daniel at States, and Had a little bit of a shocker on his squat day. Went 1 for 3. I think there were some depth
wow.
issues. He's looked to have addressed that.
Yeah.
I've seen a little bit of his training. It's been very strong, very to standard. That is the same opener as what he had at States, and he was left with that opener. So we're only going to see additions to that 755 total just from squats. I have also seen his training on bench and deadlift, and we're in for a bit of fun with those as well. So
Okay.
keep your eye on Sam, and it'll be interesting to see how that tussle goes just below those top 3. And also I have to say that any slip-ups could be capitalized on by someone like Sam, who has a very big deadlift.
Absolutely.
Here we have Michael Rand, 105 reigning champ. 822.5 is his best total. He pulled 325 from memory to equal Yanni at state champs. He was lighter, so he won. And that was 5 kilos heavier than his second. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see Michael push a little bit harder today. And we're opening here with a 275 squat.
Very deep. Should have no dramas there. Three whites from the refs for Michael.
3 whites, as you'd expect on an opener from a national champion, someone who's been in the game for a while. I remember back in couple Fed ago days, he was competing in the 105s, putting up big totals. So, Mike's been in the game for a long time. I call him farm boy strong. He is going to be able to lift very close to his best lifts any day of the week. That not only reflects his training style, programming style, but also his technique. And so I think that he's a very hard person to challenge in the 105s because he more often than not has a pretty good day.
Mm-hmm. Tom Chaplin up now, 277.5 for his opener.
Tom Chaplin, fierce competitor. He made the move from the 93s to the 105s and has reaped some massive benefits on his total. Let's check this squat out before we keep talking. Springs out at the bottom there, looking like he's in a really, really good position on the squat. Let's see what the referees have to say about the standards. 3 whites, excellent there. And it has to be said, the last national event that happened with the 105s was a Michael v. Tom situation. Michael came out on top and represented Australia at Worlds. So there's a lot going on in regard to battles here between these 3. They've all kind of battled at different times, and now we're seeing the head-to-head-to-head, and it's going to be an exciting one. Speaking of that, starting strong here from Yanni, the newcomer to the 105 weight class. A lot of energy, a lot of passion here from Yanni, and he's got a 282.5 start to his day on the squat. A very strong start. Like I said, he went 822.5 at States, and he managed to squat 312.5 at that competition. So it's going to be very interesting to see someone who's come to the weight class so recently. Is he going to squat heaps more than that? Is he going to squat a little bit more than that? What are we going to see from Yanni today? Let's check out his opener. That's a very easy squat. We love to see openers moving smoothly, effortlessly, and these lads are definitely showing us that. 3 whites. So we have a perfect opening from our top 3 contenders on our nominated totals with really good openers, 3 white lights, excellent standards, and that's what we want to see. We have a few others just under that 800 mark who have also started well, and I'm very interested to see how the day plays out for all of these competitors. Squatting 287.5. The final of the openers is Murdad. He is coming out to a 287 squat. He has also got a 187 bench opener posted and a 287 deadlift opener posted. This is going to be incredibly interesting to see how he goes across the day as a very strong competitor. If the openers are saying anything, we're in for a big day. Smooth and deep, looks solid. Two white lights. So we have one referee who was unhappy there. Something just to note, something to take into your second attempt to make sure that you're hitting those standards. Because generally speaking, human nature, when you've called something on a squat, like depth, it's something you're going to be continuing to check for with that particular lifter. It's something that's quite hard to avoid. So it's important that that standard is really sought out for the next attempt. Now we can see, looks like 2021 is the last comp I can see here from that. So it's quite hard to kind of call or predict anything. It's going to be just one to watch. So let's enjoy watching that. And we come back to the second attempt with Joel, who has a 235 squat. No issues with the 225 opener. Plus 10 is a modest jump. So we should see some strong squatting here. Let's check it out.
Yeah, good lift there for Joel. Certainly shouldn't be any worries with depth. It was nice and deep. 3 whites from the refs there. Great lift from Joel.
Happy there. We have our lovely volunteers on the platform doing a really good job of spotting and loading. Really, spotters and loaders are the bread and butter of a well-run comp. When a comp is running smoothly, quickly, as is best for the lifters, you don't want to have to wait 20 or 30 minutes between attempts. The people who are responsible for that are the spotters.
This was a good lift there for Anthony, 242.5. And then up next, Daniel Felstein, 272.5, 20 kilo jump up from his opener.
20 kilo jump is a solid jump at that load. From a percentage standpoint, pretty manageable. We see some that just take something slightly bigger. We see some take slightly smaller. So I would expect this to be a strong, smooth squat from Daniel. Again, to reflect on his state's performance, he squatted 280. This is something that should be pretty routine for him. But he'll be looking to see what he can take from here. Will he want to take plus 10, plus 12, plus 15? Obviously, it'll be based on how this moves. So let's see how Daniel can do with this load. Looking very strong and steady there. I think it's important to note with a lifter who moves a little bit slower through the descent, it's not irregular to see them move a bit slower through the ascent with ease. Someone else moving upwards that slowly might think that's really, really hard. For him, I would guess that was a pretty comfortable squat, and I wouldn't be surprised to see at least 10 kilos added to the bar from here.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's just there. He's a really controlled lifter. He's slow into the hole, and he's nice and smooth out of the hole. Should see a reasonable jump.
Absolutely. And it's another indicator that if every part of the ascent looks pretty much the same, that it was pretty comfortable. What you'll often see is what people refer to as a sticking point, that if there's a particular part of the lift that's quite hard, that indicates you are getting closer to your max. And it's important to pay attention to those parts of the lift because that is where you need to judge how much you have left. Very deep. Parkin's done incredibly well there. And was there a note on the previous attempt of 1 red? Does I remember that correctly?
Could have been, mate.
For the knee or something like that with one of the referees?
He's cleaned it up there anyway.
Either way,
yeah.
Either way, he's done very well there. And it looks like there's a lot of room. So again, for those watching at home, you can see how each lifter moves a little bit differently. And we're going to see them hopefully putting the right numbers on for these thirds to really maximize their day. Sam's coming out. Previously mentioned to keep an eye on him because of his situation at the latest comp where he missed a couple of squats. So this is going to be a bit of redemption for him. Let's see how he goes with 280 kilos. Walkout looks steady.
Wow.
He's moved that weight nicely. Referees. 3 white lights. No issues at all. As long as he can maintain those standards for his thirds, we're going to see a pretty major increase on the total thanks to the squat today.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Looking over next, we have Michael Rand coming out with a 15 kilo increase from the opener. So you can see, it's a slightly smaller increase, but pretty normal for Michael. And he will be looking to just put up a strong subtotal today. I don't think he needs to ask too many questions of himself on the subtotal with someone who will really command the day with his deadlift. So if he comes out with something pretty similar to what he did at States, I think Michael will be putting himself in a great position to fight for that first place. So here we have 290, where I'm sure Michael and his coach will be looking to put on another 10 to 15 if this moves suitably. Looking nice and composed, very comfortable under the bar. Very deep, exceptionally deep, and got a nice spring out of the hole, actually. I actually coached Michael in competition at the latest comp at States. And if I was there, I would be happy to put on at least 10 more kilos for him. So I'd be interested to see what Michael and his coach select. Because again, it's tactical. He has that big deadlift, and it's important that he plays the day correctly. Next, we have Tom Chaplin coming out to 295 kilos. You see, it's a solid jump here. And this is going to set him up really nicely to hopefully sail over 300 kilos. 300 kilos, I believe, was a squat he hit at his state competition. And I know from speaking to Tom that it wasn't the performance he wanted. And I know he was having a little bit of management with his body weight in that prep. And I know he's done a much, much better job of that this prep. And everything has looked pretty dialed in and in line for PBs across the left. So 295 will tell us the story. If it moves as I expect, we should see an attempt over 300 for Tom on his third. Let's check out how he goes with this 295 kilo squat. Goodness me. That moved about the same as the opener.
Yeah.
And I'm gobsmacked at the pace of that. 295, looking like it had a couple reps in the tank. Would really surprise me to see anything less than 305 on the bar for Tom on this third. I'll be, again, interested to see what coach and athlete decide, because there are a lot of things going into that decision, but he looks sensational on the squat.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. 10 kilo jump should be in the ballpark.
Next out, we have Yanni hitting 300 on the nose for his second attempt, a 17 kilo increase, which again puts him in really good stead to hopefully push past his best 312.5. And again, these gentlemen are trying to build every kilo they can, because it's really going to matter as the day comes to a head. 300 kilos, a goal for many, a life goal for many. 300 on the back here. Let's see how smoothly Yanni can move this.
Wow.
Very nicely done there. We saw a really good maintenance of position out of the hole. And then we saw a nice little bit of second gas through the middle, which again would suggest there's a bit of room. There's a bit of room to be had here on the squat. So,
yeah, for sure.
Last one to come out is going to be Murtadad at 305. I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm giving my best effort. We have a really big increase there to 305. A solid enough increase, actually. And it'll be really cool to see how he handles this load. I'm eagerly watching this lifter. And depth standards looked solid on the last one. I'm curious whether there was one red from memory.
I believe so, yeah.
So let's check out 305, and we can get that nice 3 white lights, which gives you a lot of confidence then going into your third. Incredible lifting going on here in the 105 kilo class with the Alliance at the Open Nationals Series event.
Wow.
Looking solid. Looking solid. I'm interested to see what referees have to say here. He's moving steadily in and out of the hole. It looks pretty deep. We still have one red there, which is consistent. You can have situations like one hip showing a little higher than the other, you know, the anatomy of it. So that's okay. We can deal with that. We're getting lifts on the board. I do think that this looked a bit on the tougher side, and there's not as many kilos as some of the other lads who are going to be taking maybe 10, 12, 15. I'd expect 5 or 7,
sure.
somewhere in that realm. But again, everyone's different. I could be totally wrong. We could come out for a +10, +15, and it just moves similar. So that's always the fun of it. We can predict, we can think what we want, and we just got to watch it unfold.
Here comes Joel Mullen out now. 5 kilo jump up to 240 for his third attempt.
All right, this is where it gets fun, and we start to see what these lifters really have when push comes to shove, because it's all good and well in training, all your controlled conditions, change the aircon if you've got aircon in your gym, all these different things. On comp day, you got to make weight. 2 hours later, you got to lift, and you get 1 shot for each lift. Wow, Joel. Impressive work through that squat for Joel at 240 kilos. 2 to 1, good lift. 240 kilos on the board for Joel. Very, very impressive lifting. Always love to see a lifter hit their sticking point, hold their position, and grit through. So fantastic effort there from Joel. Congratulations on 240 squat. Next we've got Anthony coming out for a 255 kilo squat. Let's see how Anthony holds up.
Yeah, the body always wants to try and shoot those hips back, and if the lifter can manage to stay forward, they can often push through that sticking point. Anthony fist pumping all of the spotters and loaders today. Getting hyped for his 255 kilo squat, 12.5 kilo jump up. Solid walkout. Does well. Yeah, wow. Previous PB was 250 at his last comp, so it looks like a 5 kilo PB there for Anthony. He's started his day really well.
Yeah, he's done beautifully there, and to hit a 5 kilo PR in his second is always a nice thing to be able to do. He did have to work for it. I think that if I saw that as a third attempt, I'd think that was probably a little easy. As a second attempt, it looked a little hard, which means there's probably going to be just a small jump going on there. But I mean, walking away and securing that second at 255 is always
No, we're
nice.
up to thirds, mate.
Oh, we have thirds.
We're moving quick.
Just me, of course.
We're moving quick.
Third attempt, 255. He's looking at 5 kilo PR. My bad. Yep.
Yeah, no, so good, really good third attempt there for Anthony.
Me, I just want to stay in this 105 kilo class forever. So I'm just going to keep working back.
We just want deadlifts to come, mate. That's what.
Yeah.
That's all we want to see.
We got seconds now and first next, right?
Absolutely. Daniel Felstein up now. 282.5. Another 10 kilo jump up from his second. So 20 kilo jump to his second from his first. Now 10 kilo. Throws it well into the hole. Hits the sticking point. Pushes through. Can he get the knees locked? Let's see what the judges have to think about that one.
Three reds. I was sitting there waiting to see what happened, but was thinking to myself, he pulled up a little bit compared to the previous ones.
Yeah.
It was right on the borderline. I think that at a national event, when you have a borderline squat, you're going to get a red light.
Yeah, absolutely. And look, he ended up getting blue cards there, but I think depth was a little high. And then I also not quite sure he got the knees completely locked at the top.
Yep.
Taj Smith out now, 285, another 10 kilo jump here on the third.
Taj looked very strong on his second. A 10 kilo jump seems modest. So let's see how he goes with 285.
Depth looks good.
Pretty comfortable. I'd be confident to say his depth looks solid there.
Yeah.
Looks like that is a 10 kilo competition PR for Taj, which is major.
Wow. And that's
of recent days, anyways. Looks like he's had some bigger squats over in another federation, but I think that might be.
And possibly in wraps, actually.
Looks like it would be in wraps. So I think that would be a knee sleeves PR in a big way. So well done to Taj there.
Yeah, wow.
Locking in 285 on the third squat. Next, we have Samuel Forsberg coming out for a huge 295. And again, we have to reflect on the fact that this is a 30 kilo increase on the state's performance. And puts him in the game a little bit more in the rankings under those first three.
Yeah, really impressive. He's been able to dial in that squat, that depth issue, within a few months. He'll come back out here and hit 30 kilos above his previous. Wow. Wow. It looked good from here. Let's see what the refs think.
And quite frankly, he's made that look like something between an opener and a second.
Yeah, absolutely.
So big gas there.
And plenty of support here in the crowd.
Yeah, he definitely has a solid local support. I believe he trains at Hunter Performance Center, not far from here, 10 minutes away. So he does have an awful lot of support in the crowd. Love to see thirds getting hit on the platform. Next up, we have Michael. As mentioned before, looked good for about a 10 kilo increase, and he's taken that 10 kilo increase. Looking to lock down lifts in this subtotal. Going to see something from Michael here, which I call revving the engine. As he comes out of the hole, we're going to see a little bit of shaking and shuddering as he powers up through the bar. That's his style. Off he goes. Pretty much the perfect attempt if he can get white lights here.
I mean, depth looked really good from our angle. Got to the top. Yeah, 3 white lights. Great
3 white lights. There was a momentary pause in the middle of the lift, but the bar didn't go down. The viewers at home, if you were to hit a squat and stand up with it, but at some point during the ascent the bar travels down at all, that is reds. You will get a missed lift. So there Michael had that little pause, that little moment in the middle of the squat, but he was able to keep pressure on the bar, not let it dip at all, and he secured that 300 kilo squat, which is precious, precious kilos for our reigning champ.
Here comes Tom Chaplin out for his third attempt, 305, a 10 kilo jump.
Yep, Tom Chaplin has hit 300 at his latest competition. I believe that is his standing competition PR from memory.
Yeah.
I'll be wrong, but I'm pretty sure. And as mentioned on the 295, I was expecting at least 10. Again, tactically securing lifts and knowing what you're going to need. He's done very well with that.
Wow.
A little bit of a smirk coming out of the hole, and 3 white lights for the 305 kilo squat for Tom Chaplin. Now we have Yanni coming out to an Australian record attempt. The current Australian record standard is 310 kilos for the 105s. If you are attempting anything over that, you're allowed to take half kilo increments, which can be quite the advantage in a close contest. So if Yanni can secure this, he secures precious kilos. And I'll explain a little bit more about chips after we watch this squat. Again, easy, comfortable squat there with plenty in the tank, which again is one of those things which will be interesting to see how it plays out. Now, the chip is a 1.5 kilo chip rather than taking a 2.5 kilo increment. Again, for those watching at home, what that means is that the lifters later on in the competition are going to need to match or beat that, depending who is lighter on body weight, which we'll have a look at in a second. And it can mean an advantage if you are heavier. It can take away a body weight advantage. There's a lot of benefits to taking a chip. I'm curious on the 1.5 kilo because the zero point 0.5 kilo would have given the same advantage. So I'd be interested in the thinking around that. I guess it can just throw other coaches sometimes to like always have to throw in that extra 1.5 kilo. It's a bit like we're so used to calculating 2.5 kilos as to what we need next. So the other coaches are going to have to make sure they've got all their spreadsheets and calculations done correctly. And we will actually analyze that a little bit closer and check out the body weights to, again, just pan things out for the viewers at home.
Absolutely. And look, we have a massive third attempt here coming out for Medad. 312 kilos on the bar. National record attempt here. Just chipping that record previously set.
Yeah, so as mentioned previously, you can take that 0.5 increment, which is exactly what has happened here. And with a successful squat here, Murdad will claim that Australian record. If he misses, it stays with Yanni. Done very, very well there from a strength perspective. A better squat from a strength perspective than the previous. And 3 white lights. And Murdad leaves the squat session with the Australian record. Yanni having held it for about a minute. Both excellent squats. A really, really great squat session from the 105s here. And we're going to talk a little bit more when we come back about the differences in the chips, the body weight advantage, and all those various things. We're going to have a little bit of a break now before bench press. How long's the break? 10 minutes?
10 minutes, mate.
Yeah.
All right, we'll see you back in 10.
Thanks so much.
All right, we're back for bench. Bar is loaded here for Josh McCurry. 127.5 on the bar.
Yep, moving into the second lift of the day. And if we just do a brief recap of the lifters up at the top of the 105 kilo class, we're talking about Tom Chaplin, Yanni Musalis, Murdad Akbari, Michael Rand, as really what we thought was going to be a top three, looking like a top four. Again, with minimal data there with Murdad, we didn't really have a lot to go on, and he's come out with a 312 Australian record.
Yeah, wow.
And openers that looks like he's going to demand the attention from the other lifters to not discount him from this race. So I'm very interested to see how that unfolds. Then we also have Sam, Daniel, who are looking like the next runners for the placings after that, based on openers and whatnot, but we'll see how the day obviously unfolds. Very interested to see how things play out. Bench press, again, crucial numbers on bench press as we head towards the deadlift, and we'll see how we go with that. When we were talking about chips previously when it comes to records and the advantage that gives, in a situation where there's no chips available, no one is lifting over a record, body weight really matters. If two lifters tie on total, the lifter with a lower body weight wins. And so this is something that's an important tactic when, heavy cutting weight or when things do shake down with the weight with the weigh in. It changes how the day is played. So if we look at those top four lifters, we have Murdad lightest at 103.45. We have Michael next lightest at 103.65. And we have Yanni and Tom equal at 104.6. So we'll talk more about that later, but a little bit of insight there into where the body weight is, because that will change how the day is played.
Okay. And Matthew Shield coming out next. 140 on the bar.
Loaded for Matt. Let's go.
Bench press there from Matthew at 140 kilos. He's got 2-1. Next up, we have Churong, who we spoke about a little bit during the squats. Had a tough start to the day, but pulled through. So he's sitting at that 205 kilo squat, looking to add 140 kilos. When we add the squat and the bench press together, we call that the subtotal before we go and do deadlifts to complete the total. So it's always interesting to see people who are specialists in the subtotal, maybe a little bit weaker on the deadlift, others who are a little bit weaker on the subtotal and a little bit stronger on the deadlift, and how things sort of even out over the day. From a leverages perspective, long arms can be one thing that can really help with the deadlift, and there can be something that, work against you a little bit in the bench press. All things created equal, the deadlift is usually a much bigger lift in absolute numbers, so it does pay on average to have the bigger deadlift, but not always the case. There are a lot of lifters I could name who have extremely strong bench presses, and it doesn't matter at the end of the day. Mr. Jonathan Keiko from America, who has a near 250 or maybe just over 250 kilo bench press in competition. That's a massive draw card, so exception to the rule. But yeah, lovely lifting here from Churong with a 3 white light, 140 bench press, a much smoother start to his bench press day than his squats.
Absolutely.
We'll keep that up, hopefully, along the rest of the day for Churong.
Yeah, it's quite interesting. We've seen that sort of, on the international stage, that shift towards the all-rounder in recent times. It used to be that deadlifter, pulling from 9th to 1st on their last pull. But, people like Agatha, Jonathan Keiko, some of the big names that are really all-rounders, they're pretty good at all the lifts and can build that really big total.
Absolutely. And there are still examples of people who have massive deadlifts Enna comes to mind in the 83s.
Absolutely.
But they're less and less frequent because I think the standards in the sport continue to rise. Education in the sport continues to rise. People are starting earlier, and we are seeing that more balanced lifter. And I think that it also showcases how important it is to consistently have good days as a balanced lifter. You need all three of your lifts to go pretty well. Great bench there from
Angus.
140 kilos. Looks like we're going to be good. 3 white lights. So what I'm saying with the balanced lifter is if they come in and have a pretty good day across their lifts, they're going to put up a pretty good total. Whereas someone who's heavily weighted to, say, a deadlift and happens to have a good squat day, a good bench day, and a really bad deadlift day, their total's really going to suffer. So you can have that situation where, okay, someone's got a big draw card on their deadlift, but they really need to have a good day on their deadlift. So we will see a little bit of that today. There are some lifters out here who are particularly strong on their subtotal and others who are really going to rely on that deadlift coming through to place appropriately. So we're going to see that play out today.
Absolutely.
Joshua Dawson coming out for a 147.5 bench press. We saw a nice 262.5 squat from Joshua on his third attempt. So he's looking to keep on adding to that lovely subtotal as a big deadlifter. He's looking smooth there.
Very nice. Same weight, 147.5 kilos on it off. Bars loading from Callum.
In the IPF, the feet must be flat on the floor, as flat as the shoe allows your feet to be. The head must stay on the bench. The bum must stay in contact with the bench. And we also now need to get elbow depth.
Yeah, and then the introduction of the tight shirt rule this year as well. After the elbow depth rule come in, some people did try to trick the system by wearing very baggy sleeved shirts, but we've corrected that one this year. The IPF releasing the new rule that the shirt must be fairly tightly fitted on the arms.
Always going to be the way. I think the bench press is where we see powerlifters try to work with the rules as much as possible, which is a part of the motivation for a rule like that coming in with the elbow depth. There are differing opinions on it, but it's currently the rule, and we've got to abide by it. Callum hitting a 147. Was that Callum just then?
Yes, it was. Yep.
Beautiful.
And Kevin Ho out next with a 152.5 opener to get his bench press session underway.
Spotting all weekend, bro. Nice lift there from Kevin at 152.5. We are looking for the underside of the elbow to go below the middle of the shoulder from the top. Awesome to work that one out. But essentially, you're oftentimes better off looking to get your elbows to that sort of parallel point or even below to be sure. So we do have a 2 reds there, which may well have been for depth if we didn't get a card there.
Yellow card. So, and given the head ref gave one, I would tend to think it's either jumping the call or elbow depth.
Yeah, I believe elbow depth would be primary now, so it'd probably be a red card. But I'm not a referee, so I'm not going to try and call that too hard. He's done something wrong there, and he'll need to reflect on that with his coach and come out and improve on that. Make sure he doesn't jump the call if perhaps he did that.
I haven't done my update yet for this year, so yeah, they may have changed that one.
Yeah, like I said, I'm not going to speak too firmly on that. Nice, strong opener there, 170 kilos. Christopher definitely looking in form today.
Yeah, he's moving very well. All right, looks like we are back to the top of the flight now. So we'll start our second bench presses with Josh McCurry coming out now, 135 on the bar, 7.5 jump from his second attempt. You'll see here on the bench press that some lifters opt for a handout. They'll get the spotter to help them lift the bar out of the rack. Then other lifters may opt to self-unrack. Really comes down to personal preference. Oh, no lift there for Josh, unfortunately.
Bit of a strange miss there, maybe a little bit of a misgroove.
Yeah, he kind of looked to his side just before he started, like waiting while he did, was waiting for a press call. A start command. So maybe just threw him off a little bit.
Absolutely, and I think bench press would have to be the lift that exposes not perhaps practicing the standards the most, not to say he doesn't, but what we have is the referees, again, similar to the squat, the side referees are assessing elements of position as I outlined before. Once those referees put their hands down, then the chief ref or head refs are going to give that start command. That can take a little bit of time, especially if you're wriggling around a little bit. They're going to wait until you're absolutely still. So it can feel like a long time holding that barbell over the chest, and then that can really gas you for the rep itself. So really important to practice that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We have Truong now, 147.5. Strong press for his second.
Moving nice and smoothly through that lift. Definitely some kilos to spare. It'll be interesting to see whether he takes 2 or 5, which is the likely jump I can see from someone going 7.5 from first to second. Generally, when we see the jumps from the lifters, we see something equal to or less than the jump that they took from the first to second, or the second to third. Not always the case. There are exceptions, say, pull in for the win or something like that. More often than not, we do see those reducing jumps as we get to that third attempt.
Yeah, and that just started to look like it just got the slightest, a little bit hard. So yeah, I agree. I think a 2.5 to 5 kilo jump there for his third. Angus coming out now, 147.5. Another 7.5 kilo jump for Angus on his second attempt. And Angus moves that one quite well. Let's see if the judges like it. They do. 3 white lights for Angus.
Next, we have Matthew coming out for a 150 kilo bench press second attempt. Solid 10 kilo jump. Let's see how he moves it. Manages to lock that one out. Definitely a tough press there. Unsure if we'll see much more from him today. It's one of those situations, 3 white lights, it's one of the situations where the lifter can opt to come out and attempt an increase from that, or they could also choose to essentially let the timer run out. The reason that we let the timer run out is that it allows the lifters who are next to have the whole minute that they would normally get where that lifter is going, and so they aren't going sooner than they think, and they get a fair amount of rest. But I'll be very interested whether we see an attempt at all from that 150 kilo second. Callum with a tidy 152.5.
Yeah, that one moved very well.
3 white lights, 152.5. It was a 5 kilo increase from the opener. I would expect another 5 kilo increase. We might see it too. All depends on what that looks and feels like for the individual. It's very hard to judge, but we can do our best. Notice Callum has a nice flare off the chest from the arms, which really allows him to catch into the pecs and push through. A lovely style, and more common to see in a wider grip bench presser. Again, you'll see differences in grip width. The legal maximum width is that you can be on the rings of the barbell, which if you ever look at a power bar, there are rings, smooth rings towards the outer edge. And here you'll see Joshua is pretty much max width. He's allowed to be that wide so long as the rings are covered the referee cannot see the rings on the insides of the hands, or else it will not be allowed to start, or they'll be given a red. Smooth lift there, 155, 7.5 kilo increase. So with the rings, you're allowed to be as narrow as you like. As long as you have your thumb wrapped around the bar, you're not allowed to use what would be colloquially termed as a suicide grip. It's unsafe, and so we do require the thumbs to be wrapped around the barbell at all times on the bench press. We've got Kevin coming out after a missed 152.5 bench press opener, opting to take that 7.5 kilo increase. That's him and his coach saying, we're good, we'll take 7.5. There's something we need to clean up here, but we're confident we can do it. So let's see if we can execute that 160 now. Had a hard time there. It was a long time waiting for that start call, which means that there was something that the referees were waiting for to get that start call. Because again, it's got to be majority of referees happy for the start command to be given. Now, I'm particularly interested to see how Kevin goes. I am not expecting an increase from here. I'm expecting another attempt at 160. And I'll say, it is very hard to make a third bench that you've missed on strength on your second. So I really hope he can pull it out. It might be something small like position. It might be something small like getting a slightly faster start command, which is on him to be in the right positions.
Yep.
So I really hope he can come out and get that low. It's going to be interesting to see how he goes.
Yeah, I just seen the umpire signal that he wasn't happy with his elbows being locked out at the start. So if he can fix that one up and come back out on the third, he might be able to grab it. And speaking of coming out, here comes Christopher now, coming out for his second at 177.5, 7.5 kilo jump.
And that moves nice and smoothly. 7.5 kilo increase, pretty standard bench jump, depending on your training practices. Looked like it was getting towards that upper end. What do we think he might have left from here?
Look, I think safe will be 2.5. Max will be 5. It took him quite a while to get that rack command and from not fully locking the elbows. So, I think 2.5 if he wants to be safe. 5 might be there if he thought it was a bit of a misgroove.
Yeah, it's one of those things, and we again particularly see this with people who are maximizing to the rules, like with a wider grip and a bigger arch and those various things. That once things get hard, the drop off is quite steep. So I would tend to expect that they'll go for that safe at 2.5. There's not a huge reason to go for that 5 and potentially lose the possible 2.5 they could have got it. And this is where it comes down to those sort of game day decisions coach and athlete need to make, where there could be something emotionally tied to going +5, or what am I going to do? So, making that decision is multifactorial, and we'll see what he comes out with. Third attempt here. We won't see that one getting all the way to lockout, unfortunately. Very high sticking point. Everyone's got a little bit of a different sticking point, again, based on the build. So we will be left there, I believe, with the opener, because the second was missed.
Yeah, and obviously the bench press, a movement that moves through, both pectoral strength, some upper back strength, and then eventually ends up in the triceps. And so high sticking point can sometimes lead to, or come from a tricep sort of issue, but can also be positionally related and leverages and all sorts of things that play into it.
That's it. And I think sometimes when it comes to missing, sometimes it's just too heavy. It's one of those things where everyone's got a sticking point, and that if you miss here or you miss there, it can be from an error. It can be from all those various things you said, absolutely. And then sometimes it's just a little heavy.
It is what it is.
That's it. So unfortunately there for Josh, he's left with his opener at 127.5, which he'll have to live with for today. At least he's got something on the board there.
Matthew Shield here with 152, just unfortunately not quite strong enough on today. And couldn't quite get that one up, but he finishes on the day on 150, which, he's only left 2.5 kilos there, so that was probably a good choice there to only go up by the 2.5.
That's it. And what you'll notice watching at home is that the bench press would probably be the highest miss rate of the 3 lifts on average. A few reasons for that. There's a few more technical nuances. There's less places to hide if you have breakdown versus the squat and the deadlift, which incorporate a lot more muscle groups, and you're standing up, so there's a lot more going on, moving around in space. There's also less downsides to missing. There's less risk in missing because you don't get quite as gassed from it. It's not quite as impactful on, say, deadlifts later. Whereas we made a point earlier that if you're going to miss and grind out a squat, you are going to pay for that on the deadlift in some way. You're going to be tired through your back.
Oh, wow.
Lovely grind there.
Yeah, Angus gets that back to the top, grinds it out, and he gets
Angus,
2 to 1.
2 to 1.
Good
He's
lift.
happy there. So we were saying before, grinding out a bench press like that or grinding out and missing is not going to have the same negative effects, generally speaking, as a squat will on your lower body lifts later, like the deadlift. So that, to come full circle, is kind of a reason why we see a lot more misses, because the risk isn't really there in that regard, I would think.
Yeah, for sure. Look, question in the comments there about the scores. If you scan that QR code that's up in the top corner of the screen, that will load up the scoreboard, and then click the little menu button and select board. You'll be able to see the live scores for those that were wondering if certain people got lifts earlier or not. Scan that QR code, jump onto the live scoreboard. Here comes Trong now with his third 155 on the bar, 7.5 kilo jump.
He's worked through that beautifully. Now,
That's
there was
really well.
a little bit of movement through the middle of the rep. We're going to see what the referees think about whether he kept moving upwards the whole time. And we have 2 to 1. So again, we have referees in 3 different positions around the platform. You can have a situation where a bench press grind like that happens and one side of the barbell is sort of moving downwards at various points. That referee is going to call that red. Again, that's why we have the 3 referees, to give that more global view of things, and we get that 2 for 1.
Yeah, bench is really, really hard on the side referees. They've got so much stuff to look for. They've got to look for feet movement, butt lift, up and down on the bar, elbow depth. Did it touch the chest?
Yeah.
I mean, it's an intense lift to try and ref for.
It's as hard for the refs as it is for the lifters.
Here's Callum Rush now, 157.5. Unfortunately, they're just a bit heavy for him. Only leaves behind 5 kilos, though. Finishes the day with his 152.5 seconds.
And that's a bit of an illustration for the drop-off for the bench press. We were commenting after the 52.5 that it was sound, moved well, but will he have 2? Will he have 5? Evidently, 2.5 would have been a better pick, but hindsight is like that.
Yeah, especially for bench. It's not heavy till it's heavy, right?
Exactly. Joshua Dawson coming out next for a 160 kilo. I know that he has been hyping this number up in training a little bit.
Right.
He's been pretty stoked to hit it a few times. So I think he'll be pretty chuffed to hit it on the platform. I'm going to try and pull his numbers up whilst he's benching to see what he's done in competition.
Yeah, again, I mean, training lists are all good, but again, particularly with bench press, this is the one where doing it on the platform really matters because it's so technical. There's so many things you can get called for.
It looks like it'll be a 10 kilo competition
Wow.
PR if I'm reading this correctly.
Wow, when was his last comp there?
Those states.
Oh, wow, so only a couple of months difference. Oh, off the chest very quickly. Wow.
He's done beautifully there. And if the stats in front of us are correct, that's a 10 kilo PR, which you should not be
stoked
unhappy with
that.
at all.
3 white
They come
lights.
out with a big squat on the board and a bench press PR. It's a good start to the day for a big deadlifter.
Yeah, and then, I mean, typically the big deadlifters aren't often as good at bench presses, because they generally have longer arms, etc. So
Absolutely.
he needs all those kilos.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, cross your fingers and your toes for Kevin Ho for this third attempt 160. We want to see him get over the line for this so he stays in the day. It's a big ask, but it can be done. Let's go, Kevin. He's going to want to be confident here.
Gets the command.
Been asked to replace the bar, which means the referees are not happy with his starting position. They're going to indicate to him what is wrong. It will probably be the elbows again.
Yeah.
And this does drain his odds of hitting this left. It's very tiring re-racking and unracking a barbell. But again, let's see how Kevin goes on this third attempt.
He's got 2 to 1 there this time.
No good.
No, too heavy.
And not awfully surprised, even if he had a clean start with that first attempt at this third attempt, it would have been a big ask. Once you've been told to replace the barbell, it's a hard ask because unracking the bar is tiresome in itself. Which again comes back to why some lifters get a handout.
Yep.
Right? So very sad to see Kevin bomb on the bench press there. It's never the day you want. It does happen from time to time, and all we can hope is that there are some lessons there, improving to be done. But we're going to move on with the competition now. We have Christopher coming out for a 182.5 bench press, a 5 kilo increase. We were kind of wondering whether he'd take 2 or 5. He's opting to go for the 5, which will most likely be more top end. Let's see how he goes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, again, it's his coach. He's in his coach's call. We don't follow his training day to day, so let's see how this one goes.
Absolutely, and I think as well, bench press variability on execution can be a big one. You can come off a second and go, that was a little tougher because I kind of stuffed this thing up. I've got 5 and pull it off, So we might see that here, and I'd love to see it. I think there's definitely a good chance he hits this. He's a technician in the bench press, and so he's very, very particular about building tension, building pressure, and we're going to hopefully see a really great rep here.
It's 2-1 on the start.
He's very nearly fought through that middle there. He got it going again after getting to the middle point.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, no good today. Look, that's a tough call because he's made a 5 kilo jump increase and he probably had 4.5.
Yeah.
And that's the bench press situation that these little micro differences can make all the difference. And that's where it's like, 2.5, I think I'm good for 5. And he very nearly was. So it's a tough one.
Yeah, it also took him a long time to get the start command, and even then only got 2-1. One ref still wasn't happy with something. Again, probably elbows, but and that just takes it out of you when you're talking 180 odd kilos on the bar.
It comes back to your point at the start of this whole session about squat depth and nationals and the standard. And I think that all these situations do is just remind people to train to and even beyond the standards to make sure that there's really no doubt. And it's something we hear a lot, leave no doubt, and sometimes it's easier said than done. In this situation, we still walk away with 2 solid bench presses.
Taj Smith out now to open his bench session, 147.5. Taj makes extremely light work of that one. Let's see if the refs like it. And they do. 3 white lights there for Taj.
Great start there from Taj. So we had our second flight here of 105s, and we're going to see some really good stuff going on in these subtotals, which will set the tone for the competition.
And Joel Mullen up next, 155 for his opener.
Good show.
On Joel, he's got caught sitting down, wasn't quite ready for his bar as loaded command, but he's out here now. Still got plenty of time on the clock, 38 seconds. Should be able to get the start command before the clock runs out.
Absolutely. It should be noted for the viewers at home that the lifter has 60 seconds to receive the start or squat command in each respective lift. Now to replace the bar, which is going to be a tough one with 13 seconds left on the clock. You have to get set up and come out again and receive that start command before we hit 0.
Let's go.
He's got it. And he's locked it out. See, that looks a little bit on the tough side for an opener, and that is not surprising when you've been asked to re-rack and you've come out late in those various things. So hopefully you can tidy things up a little bit and just come out, ready to go at the start of that minute and not have any issues with the next unrack. But we've locked that in, which is a good start.
Yeah, I mean, he did great to recover there. He got the start command with about 2.5 seconds left on the clock, so that's going to rattle you.
Yeah, it's always tough, and I think that it's important to stay composed in those moments, but also to know how to move through your setup a little bit quicker if you need to.
Yeah.
You'll see a lot of these lifters will chew up 10, 20, 30 seconds, depending who you are. And that's perfectly fine if you never get asked to re-rack a barbell. But if you are under the pump and there's 10, 15 seconds to go, you need to just get it done, because otherwise, if you time out, it doesn't matter at all. Very strong start there from Anthony with a 155 bench press, a little bit less common grip width, a little bit more narrow, which again would suit this person's strengths. It can be a variety of different factors, but lifters and coaches are going to experiment with a variety of different grip widths and styles and come into competition with what is strongest for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, it comes back to, do you have stronger triceps? Do you have stronger pecs? Do you feel stronger when your wrists are stacked over the elbow or when you're flared out more tucked in? There's so many different schools of thought when it comes to bench and grip width.
Absolutely, and honestly, that's kind of what speaks to powerlifting being for everyone, is that there's a little adjustment you can make for every lift to play to your strengths, which is what makes it so fun to coach and do as a sport. So I think there's a huge amount to be taken away from there, but good to see how each of the lifters is playing to their own strengths. Daniel here on the 157. Again, you'll see a lot of control from Daniel across his lifts. It's his particular style and what works best for him, which is never a bad thing to be in control of the weight. See how he goes in this 157.5 opener. Smooth as you would expect. A good selection to start the bench press. Again, getting on the board, and what you'll notice is the most seasoned or more seasoned lifters will tend to lock in that really comfortable any day of the week bench press, squat, and deadlift for their opener to make sure that you don't get those accidents like bombing out or being really under pressure, and you can really build out your day. At the end of the day, the lift that adds to the total or accumulates to the total is the biggest one you've been able to accrue. So it doesn't matter what your opener or second is. If you get your third, you don't have to be concerned with what those lifts are, but it's important that you are locking those down just in case various things happen. We've already seen some of the variables that can affect the lifter on the day, be that the refereeing standard, be that their body weight, be that various things about the pressure. So it's just really important that you notice that the seasoned lifters are locking in that opener. Sam Forsberg here, opening at 170 kilos.
Moves that one extremely fast.
Very strong through that. I'm going to pull up his open powerlifting to see what his best bench press was at the prior comp.
3 white lights there.
Did he open at 170? Because his best bench press was 167.5 at the latest comp. So we are seeing a big change in subtotal from Sam here. The squat was baffling in of itself. Plus 30, I think, because he missed second and third at states. And now on bench, we're starting with a PR. So we're going to see a pretty major subtotal improvement. And I know for a fact his deadlifts have also gone well.
Yeah, this is must have been an insane prep for him to add that much in just 12 to 16 weeks time, I think. Thinking back to when States was.
Yeah. So we just have a minor mistake on the platform there with just a rack height being wrong on one side. So the lifter's asked to jump off the platform again, fix it up for you, and then come back out. It can be a little bit distracting for some, but I dare say Michael Rand is calls a cucumber over there as a reigning champ. I've seen him handle much bigger stress than that. So 180, opener on the bench press. We should see this move very nicely. I believe 200 is Michael's best in comp. He went 192 from memory at state, so a little bit of an underperformance. It's going to be good to see how he goes today and see if he can collect some kilos on the bench press today. Knowing his jumps and knowing his coach Simon's jumps on the bench press for him, I would expect him to be aiming for the middle of 190s, but we'll see. Oh, that is a very strong 180 from Michael. Actually seeing the barbell move with that kind of speed is a little bit uncommon for him on bench press. It's usually very steady, very strong. But he's actually moving with a lot of pace there, which is a promising sign for him. I'm going to be interested to see where they go from here.
Okay. You think it may be a 10-kilo jump?
I would be surprised purely because of what I know Simon and Michael's tendencies are with their jumps. I personally think that kind of jump could be good for him. But again, it depends how they're playing day in total, Yeah. Are they sort of thinking we need X, like 195, which then you cut it in half and go 87.95, and that's what we want, and we're not even looking above that? Well, 10 you wouldn't see it, but it just depends where their goals are. I'm very interested to see what we see, and we should be able to see what's posted here on Lift and Cast in a moment.
Is Murdad now 180 for his opener?
180 looking just as clean as Michael's there. So we definitely have a very nice contest going on here.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think a couple of surprises here so far. I mean, in this flight, so there may have to be a few quick changes to some people's game plans for today.
Absolutely. And happy to eat my words that they're going for a 10-kilo increase.
Okay.
Michael with a bench press. So again, something I think he's very capable of and would show that they believe he's looking extraordinary. So 190 might turn into 195, 197, or 200. We're going to have to see how he executes.
Let's see how it moves.
Next up, we got Yanni with a massive opener of 187.5. Second biggest opener behind Tom Chaplin, who's coming out next with 2.5 more. 187 for Yanni is a really strong start, and hopefully puts him in good stead to PR his bench press today and come out the gates with a 6 for 6 subtotal. Previously, Yanni's used a bit of a sinking style into the chest to get his elbows down to elbow depth. See what it looks like here.
Yeah.
Extremely quick. Let's see what the referees think. 3 white lights. They're very happy, and that's less of a sink than what I've seen from him before. And I did hear that he was working on slight modification. I'm not 100% sure. But he definitely looks like he has a lot of tension on the chest there, and he just absolutely threw that thing back up. So definitely kilos in the tank there for Yanni, and again, it's going to be interesting to see where he goes. Now, just to note, Murderdad has gone from 180 to 192.5, so he's taking some nice pace on his bench press jumps, and we're seeing a lot going on here during the subtotal, during the bench press for these 105s, particularly his top band fighting along, but we're seeing a lot of movement down the chain as well, as we've mentioned.
Here comes Tom Chaplin now, 190 he's going to open with.
We've seen Tom put up 200 in training a number of times, I believe 205. So it's going to be good to see how hot his bench is looking today. Definitely strong off the chest there for Tom. Didn't look like he quite caught it through the middle. And again, the nuances of bench, he could clean that up on the next one and make it move even better than that. I think it'll be interesting to see how they play the day. Again, there are going to be things that have happened behind the scenes in all of these lifters' training that we're not privy to. So we'll see what decisions are made, and we're going to watch this lifting cast. We see Yanni has posted plus 10 to a 197.5 bench press, and we'll wait to see what Tom does.
An interesting, Tom got a red with a yellow card from the centre referee. I think just on the replay there, might have seen it looked like he slightly jumped the press command.
Okay.
Comes Taj out now. 7.5 jump from his first to 155.
Yep.
First was quite easy, so let's see how he handles this one.
On the note of jumping the command, it's a funny one because the head referee, unless it's egregious, is the only one that will really notice if it's close. So you can get away with it.
Yeah.
It's not recommended to skirt it, but the lifter is always going to try to somewhat anticipate the call to kind of go as the press call is being made to get the best possible press they can. And that's fair game. Taj has done well here with 155.
Yeah, there's a little bit of work for him there in the middle, but looked as a second, we would expect a second to look. So probably another, 5 kilos there for Taj.
We get 3 whites for Taj though.
Yeah, it was a good lift for Taj.
Good lift. Joel coming out now. He's gone plus 5. Modest jump. 5 kilo increase as a percentage for a 155 bench press is fairly small for the average. But again, these are the nuances of bench press and selection. Some lifters do really well with these close jumps because it allows them a lot of practice. Fortunately, we have replaced the bar call.
This is really interesting. He had this on his first as well.
Yeah.
I'm seeing very locked elbows. So I'm not sure what he's getting the missed call for.
Yeah, again, I think it's one of those situations where you are seeing this from is important.
This is better. And again, to your point, maybe he's not quite covering the ring from the inside.
Exactly.
Maybe his right foot is not quite on the ground.
There you
We
go.
can't see that from here.
That's
so,
right.
Anyway,
The
he gets
refs-
it. Moves
The
well.
refs are putting themselves.
Oh, 3 reds though.
3 reds. So there must be something going on that we're not quite seeing. And you'll see that the referees are sort of front leg side diagonal.
Yeah.
So they're getting the full view.
They have the best view.
That's right. And so there could be various things going on, be that with the head, the grip, the elbows,
Yeah.
the bum position, the foot position. There are so many things that the referee is going to be looking for, and it's clear, and they seem to be agreeing that there's something
Yeah.
not quite right. So that needs to be addressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Now comes Anthony now.
Second attempts.
Anthony there makes the light work a 165. 3 whites from the refs.
Nice, we like that.
Yeah, wow, that was very speedy for a second. So I think we have a big jump on the cards for Anthony's third.
Love to see a big jump. I think that a lot of the time lifters get nervous about their jumps and they're trying to sort of lock lifts in and things like that, which sometimes can be sound reasoning. A lot of the time, though, in my experience, lifters who get really aggressive with their openers and seconds in terms of the load they select make it really hard to get their third. They really tire themselves out. And the lifters who pace themselves, take the biggest jump they're comfortable with, and are having strong days, make the best possible outcome for their third attempt.
Yeah, particularly on bench. It's one of those lifts that you don't want to do any more reps than you absolutely have to, right? So
Absolutely.
if you go too heavy, too hard, like too early, you just might be completely spent by the time you get to that third.
A good way to look at it is you're accumulating two things across the day. You're accumulating kilos. So if you add up all your attempts, all your warm-ups, you're accumulating a certain amount of tonnage for the day. And then you're accumulating like average exertion. So if someone does 3 attempts at difficulty of 8 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10, and someone else does a 5 out of 10, a 7.5 out of 10, and a 10 out of 10, the second lifter has been taking it easier on average. And over the day, that can really add up.
Good press there from Daniel, 170. That was quite a sizable jump. 12.5 kilo jump from his first.
It was an easy press there from Daniel. It actually moved through the ascent at a very similar rate. He looked to actually have increased his intent a little bit, which I find very interesting. It's like he just was pretty much chilling out on his opener, putting it on the board, and he's really had to put the gas on for that 170, and it looks like he's got plenty to give.
Yeah, we could see a reasonable sized jump there for his third as well. Okay, Sam Forrestberg up next, 177 on the bar for him as well. 7.5 jump from his opener.
And as we mentioned, the opener was a PR by 2.5 from the previous comp. So we're looking at a 10 kilo bench press PR in the second here, which is pretty major.
Yeah, that blows my mind.
And he's obviously had quite a good training cycle, one would say.
If I could add 10 kilos in a year, I'd be stoked, let alone in 12 weeks.
Preaching to the choir, brother.
Wow.
It looks good here. It's a solid second attempt. I would fathom that he has 2 to 5 in him. I'll be interested to see the selection, whether they get a little bit greedy with it, which I'm fine with that, but whether they kind of take a safe 2.5, which I believe would be a lock, or whether they go for that 182 and see how they go.
And Michael Rand coming out now, 190 on the bar. Currently forecasted in first place. That's with his opening deadlift, sorry. But, deadlifts can move around so much that we can't really pay attention too much to those forecasted places just yet.
Absolutely, and an indication for Michael, I remember I mentioned before I coached him at state championships. He pulled 320 for his second deadlift, walked off the platform, said to me, whatever we need up to 340. That's how he felt on the day. So if he has something like that in him today, he's definitely a front runner on the deadlift, and so he can afford to be slightly under the rest on the bench press and chase down before the end of the competition. Wowee, that is a fast-moving 190. He's really locked in today on the bench press, and again, I have a bit more experience with Michael recently, having coached him at the States. His bench press was 192, and it was a max.
Yeah, wow.
He's really looking a lot better. He's either dialed in something about the training cycle and the prep or his tech, and he has come through today really commanding kilos on the bench press. I'm interested to see what we'll see from here. We didn't think we'd see a 10 kilo, and he has done 200 in competition before, so could we see another 10? Will we see something slightly safer? I'm keen to see. Murder coming out for a 192.5, 12.5 kilo increase. And let's see how this moves, because this is going to be a very interesting lifter to watch across the day. Again, someone we knew very little about coming into the competition, but very pleased to see we've added another very strong lifter into the mix here. A sound 192.5 that I think we can expect white lights for, and we'll see in a moment. It did look like things were maybe slightly out of the groove he was in for his opener, and there could be some amendments made there to take some more kilos. We have a 2-to-1, so he's made that lift, but there has been a red light for something. It looks like the pause was a little bit iffy from the stream view here. There might have been someone calling that it jumped or something like that. So I'll be interested to see if we can see a few more kilos there from Murdad.
Yeah, and look, it was work. I think he doesn't have a lot left in the tank, maybe 5 at the most. Here comes Tom Chaplin now, 197.5 for his second attempt.
All right, 197.5 for a second attempt bench press for Tom Chaplin. 190 we noted looks strong, but maybe not quite in his groove. And a lot better there, honestly. A little bit of work through there, but he's definitely done a lot better on that attempt, and he's shown that he's got some kilos to give. So hopefully we see him going 2 or slightly over on the next one, which obviously he has to go at least 2. He's got 197.
Oh, wait, we've got 2 reds there.
Interesting. Okay, so we do have a miss there from Tom. 2 reds to 1 white.
We had a blue card from the center ref.
Yellow
Generally up and down movement.
Yep.
And then a yellow from the side, which could have been a butt lift.
Interesting. So something to note with the up and down as well is that it can happen on the chest.
Mm.
So if someone sinks a little bit and then they re-go down and up after the press is given, a really switched on head ref will see that, and that's red. You've gone down after the press command.
Yeah,
so it's one risk of sinking.
Absolutely, yeah. If you're going to sink, you have to sink before it stops.
Yep.
If you
Sink in and only come up.
And do that real heave movement, you're going to get called.
Yep.
But you're right, it is a very hard one for the ref to pick, and sometimes you get away with it.
197.5 for Yanni Marcellus here. He's pumped that nicely.
Yeah, that's a really good example of what we just spoke about. He sinks before the bar stops and then is able to use that force off the chest to pop it back up.
Yeah, essentially he's maximized that sink. He's not going to let it go any lower, and then he's only up from there. I'm unsure if that was the difference on Tom's, but it's just an example.
Yeah, not sure.
So, again, this is an interesting situation where we have some lifters making their lifts here. Tom's had a miss, which would be, a surprise on that load relative to what he has lifted before. So the play we see from here, from Tom, on this next lift will be interesting.
Taj Smith out now for his third, 157.5, just a very small 2.5 jump. I thought the 155 was a little bit of work, but I thought he had maybe 5 in the tank, so I think 2.5 here should be okay. Looks like his coach Jacob Sofianis playing the long game here, playing for the total. Let's see how he goes.
Big fight.
Wow.
Not quite got the gas to get all the way up.
No, in the end, perfect call. He's left no kilos on the platform. And again, that comes down to the coach and the lifter knowing exactly where that 155 was at, and they made the perfect call on the day.
Absolutely. Looks like we have, on the bench press attempts posted for thirds, Yanni has opted for a modest 5 after a very strong 197. Murdad is going for +5 after what we wondered whether it had much room. Michael's going +5 to 195 after what we thought could have up to +10.
Yeah.
And Sam Forsberg is going +5 after a really strong 177.
Okay.
Tom Chaplin's going 200, so he's kind of ignoring that 197 miss. He's going, I think I've got 200 in me. and he's going to come out and hopefully show us that he does. So let's see how this unfolds into our third attempt bench presses.
Okay, and there's Joel, and Joel struggled to get the star command on his second, but he's done really well there, came straight out, got the star command quickly, and pressed that one out for 3 white lights. So great work, Joel, to be able to regroup out the back, fix that little technicality, and come out. And yeah, look, really interesting for Tom. Obviously Tom and his coach are happy with what they've seen, and I think they can correct whatever the problem was and nail that 200. So let's see where Tom ends up after thirds.
Absolutely.
Daniel Felstein now back to with 175 for his third. 5 kilo jump. Wow, Daniel moves that really well. Good weight selection. I don't think there was much more in the tank. So, and 3 white lights there for Daniel.
Excellent effort there for Daniel.
Anthony here, 175, 10 kilo jump. Off the chest well.
He has muscled through that really nicely and looks stoked with his performance. Hopefully we're going to see white lights and a good left, 3 whites.
Yeah, great work there from Anthony.
Sensational. And I might just say this is actually pretty trademark of someone with a narrower grip to be able to work through a little bit better. When the barbell slows down, you'll often see wider grip bench presses more often than not. When the things slow down, a bit harder to make it work through. It's a bit general, but it is a trend that we see. 182 from Sam Forsberg here, which would be a 15 kilo competition PR if I'm not wrong. And we did see strong benching from him on the opener in the second. And this is probably somewhere around what he has done in training. I know that the way his coach Potsy preps his lifters is they're probably going to attempt something on the platform for bench press they've already done. So I would expect to come out confident. He looks good for 5. Let's see if he can get it done.
Yeah, and Sam does really well there. That's really good weight selection. Not sure there would have been another 2.5 there, to be honest. So I think they've nailed that weight choice. Coach and lifter are very happy.
Always great to see a lifter who is able to go from a high-stakes competition where they aren't able to put the pieces together and they suffer a rank or a podium they were going for, to then come out to a subtotal and execute the way Sam has today. I think it really shows they've been humble about the approach. They've gone away. They've fixed the things they were doing wrong. And they've come out and they've been undeniable in the subtotal standards. So we're seeing a really great lifting standard here, and I'm happy to see that.
Michael Rand out now. He's added 5 as you expected. Going for that 195.
Yep. Farm boy strong. Randy.
Should put him at a 495 subtotal at the end of the bench if he's successful with this one.
Extremely strong.
And then, like you said, big deadlifter. So looking to then puts him in striking range. Well, it'll put him well over the 800 mark.
Absolutely. We're talking 830s, 840s if everything goes well. It's a great call. It's a great call.
Oh, there you go.
From Michael and Coach Simon. 195 is a great pick there from Michael. He's gone 3 from 3 on the bench press with 3 white lights. And we expect nothing less than emptying the tank on the subtotal from Michael. He's done it before. He knows what he has left. 300 and 195. Really, would you expect there was much to spare on either?
No, honestly, that little sticking point in the middle, I think we would have potentially seen a little bar dip start to come in if we went any more.
That's right. So we're seeing a similar subtotal. If I'm not wrong, he went 5 more on the squat at state. So we have seen 2.5 drop on the subtotal. However, we have also seen a slightly lower squat from Yanni by, I think, 1 kilo. Yanni's having a very strong benching day, so we'll see how it pans out, and that will make the deadlift situation just a lot of fun to watch.
Oh, it's gonna be electric here.
No, that unfortunately missing that 197.5. Looked to get quite close to it, but 5 kilos just being a little bit too much.
Yeah.
Still comes away with a formidable 192.5 bench press, which is nothing to be snuffed at.
No. No, and his 192 was work, so I don't think he's left many kilos on the platform there. You know, even at 2.5 lower, not sure that would have been there. So good weight selections there.
Exactly, and it goes back to what we were saying about load selection and plans, and being able to maximize your day. We are seeing a lot of that happening. There's obviously a few exceptions, but we are seeing a lot of days looking maximized today. Now, soon enough, we should see Tom Chaplin coming out to extend his 190 opener to 200 on the third, having had a bit of a hiccup on his second, mostly technical. And this is a lift that he's definitely capable of in the grand scheme. So hopefully we can see him come out, channel up, and get this 200 ticked
Absolutely.
off.
And how's this for commitment? Stephen hurt himself yesterday in the deadlifts. He's out here right now coaching Tom.
Yeah, so if anyone who missed that, Steve, unfortunately, I believe, has ruptured his bicep from his final deadlift attempt. I was actually behind him, spotting on the platform, and yeah, very unfortunate injury for anyone to go through. But hey, as we've just mentioned, super committed coach here for his lifters no matter what. So it's great to see.
All right, let's see if Tom can lock this one in.
I do believe Tom's coached by Kelly, but the Perth team here backing each other.
And in these high pressure situations, you need multiple coaches out the back.
Teamwork makes
you
the
need
dream
double
work.
check the math. You need, there's so much going on. It's hard for one coach.
200 kilos. He's made it happen. It looked a lot better. Hopefully we're going to get 3 white lights here for Tom, because that was a very nice 200 kilo lift.
Absolutely. I mean, that moved very, very speedily. Yeah, there we go.
And such is the variability of bench press. And it goes to show that lifters who know themselves, lifters who understand what their capabilities are and the little nuances that can affect performance. He clearly walked off the platform in that second. He would have gone, I kind of buggered that one up. Let's go to 2.
Yep.
Let's not be silly about it and go 202, 205. Let's hedge our bets a little bit. But a 200 bench press after, what was he on the squat? 305.
Yeah, and I mean, you
505.
can't afford to leave 10 for the sake of another 2.5, right?
190 would make it severely harder for him to kind of catch that up on the deadlift. He's a very strong deadlifter, but we aren't talking about a class that has really weak deadlifts. We're talking about really balanced, really strong individuals across the board. So I'm happy to see Tom there secure that 200. Really love Tom as a lifter and his mindset, and love watching his training. So very happy to see him doing well here today going into deadlifts.
He's Yanni now, 202.5.
202, 2.5 up from what Tom just attempted. And unsurprisingly, he's made that look pretty comfortable. We did mention that his 197 looked like he had a fair bit of room in it. The 5 was comfortable. Did he have 7? Who really cares? He's locked in that 202. 1 red, and secured that 202 on his subtotal, which we're very happy to see.
Yeah, that moved really well for Yanni. All right, that brings us to the end of the bench session. We'll have a quick 10-minute intermission, and then we'll be back for deadlifts. It's going to get wild in here. It's too close to call at this point in time, so it's all going to come down to those third and final deadlifts. Like you said, we've got a few big deadlifters in the room. We've got people like Michael Rand who will load whatever they need. They haven't been to nationals for 18 months. They're hungry for it. They will literally load whatever it takes.
105s. Who's going to come out on top? We're going to find out next on the deadlifts. See you then.
10 minutes. See you back. All right. Hopefully you've got your popcorn, got yourself some water, and you are back on the couch, ready to watch this third session on Saturday here at the APA 2024 Open National Series. We're into the deadlifts now for the 105s, starting with flight A. Josh McCurry will be out first with 200 getting loaded on the bar. And I'll tell you, when we get to flight B, and even if flight A, there might be some big deadlifters that will be challenging for the front as well. But definitely when we get to flight B, the battle is on. The battle is on. We may come down to body weight. People are going to be pushed to go as far as they can. And we're just checking the refs are all ready to go. And the bar is now loaded for Josh. Here he comes. So Josh currently sitting on a 342.5 subtotal after the bench and squat sessions. Looking to extend that to 542.5 if he's able to get this first. And as you would expect, makes some very light work of 200 kilos. Three white lights there for Josh. Good lift. Up next, we have Jerong. He's loaded 230 for his opener. Currently sitting on a 360 subtotal. Bar is now loaded. Very good there for Jerong.
That is 3 white lights.
3 white lights.
Deadlift's really part of a competition where we see it all coming together. Obviously, we've spoken a lot about strengths of each lifter. We're going to really start to see where people really sit in the rankings. Like we've said before, some people have really big subtotals, so they'll go a little bit more moderate on the deadlift. Can they hold their placings? And then others who've done a little bit less on the subtotal, who have really big deadlifts, they're going to try and catch up as much as they can, and every decision matters. The one advantage that you get as a bigger deadlifter is you get to go later in the competition. We always go in ascending order in regard to attempts. The only time it might differ from that is the same number being taken. And in that case, there's these things called lot numbers, which are randomized, which helps us with the order. With the deadlift advantage, the reason it's an advantage is that you are allowed to change your third deadlift attempt 2 times. It's a pretty unique rule that allows for a lot of different strategies to unfold in the deadlift. And it becomes this tussle of tactics and strengths to see who can make the right calls and who can make the right changes to the exact number that they need for the win. There's a lot of bluffing that happens in these moments. There's a lot of different tactics, like I said, that make people kind of rethink their attempts or maybe, make them go earlier than they thought they would. So it's a lot of fun. Really brings out game day coaching and really the experience differences or decision-making processes for each lifter and coach.
Okay, Matt Shield there, 240. Lifts it reasonably well. Let's see what the judges think. It did look a little bit soft on the shoulders, and he's gone 2-1. So good lift. Yeah, definitely will want to yank those shoulders back a little bit further on his second. Really make it convincing. And yeah, I think, people think about game day coaching and they think it's just about today. But the reality is these coaches have been scoping out all of these lifters for weeks now. They know just about as much, people post on Instagram. Everyone's coach knows about that, things like that, right? So it's not just about today. They've done their recon.
That's right. And what you'll notice, whilst that pre-sort of recon is important for the game day, what's happening on the day is something you'll really notice the coaches are paying a lot of attention to. So someone's taking a second attempt, you will see the coach of that lifter watching and every coach who's competing with that lifter because they are wanting to gauge for themselves what they believe that lifter has in the tank, and that will affect then what selections they make for their lifter. So you're going to see a lot of watching. If you're seeing this live stream angle from the side, you'll notice a lot of coaches just checking things out.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's where you won't see you know, many of the top sort of coaches and gyms here at this event, they haven't shown up with just one coach, right? They're working as a team. They've got one out the back looking after the lifter. They've got one here watching the other lifters, and they're collaborating together to work to, you know, get that group think about what do we think that person has next.
That's it. It's one of those things where you can get, you know, those rose-colored glass, you know, vision on things where you're sort of looking at something with an emotional lens or looking at something as being influenced by what others are doing. So having a few people there to sort of level things out can be really good, because at the end of the day, powerlifting is objective in terms of what you can and cannot do. You cannot will your way to 2.5 more kilos. You do have a physical limit. Now, not to say you can't get in the perfect mental state to impact that, but you do have a limit on the day, and it's important that you are just making the correct calls.
Absolutely. And, you know, a lot of these coaches probably spent a bit of time in their life with weightlifting, and, you know, that game day coaching and weightlifting is that next level again, where there's so many mind games that go on, and it's great to see that come across into powerlifting and really make the game day enjoyable for everyone.
Absolutely. I would say that the dynamic is interestingly different in that you have 3 lifts and you have much bigger jumps. Weightlifting is really small jumps. Not to say it's easier to play the day, but I think that someone can just fly out of nowhere in powerlifting and go, I'm here. You know, I'm not a strong squat or bench presser, but I'm here on the total, and that can really change things. It's a nice solid opener there. Slight sort of bobble through the lockout there for Christopher on the 270. Nothing that seems too problematic. We're going to see we've got 3 white lights, so no concerns, but it is important to sort of, what you'll see is the body language on the openers sometimes means nothing, but sometimes intensifies or gets worse, so to speak, on the seconds and the thirds as it gets more difficult. So we can sometimes take hints. Hopefully that was nothing. I'm just sort of, you know, noticing something that doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
But we want to make sure that lockout stays nice and clean.
Yeah, watching it back, it looked like it was fine. Just I think hips came through that a little bit fast. Wasn't expecting
Like I
it.
said, referees had no issue with it. There's clearly nothing significant going on there. It's a strong start for sure. 280 here from Joshua. We already mentioned he's got a great intensity about his lifting, and he's coming out with a really strong deadlift draw card to hopefully chase down some of these lifters in this flight particularly. He's come out with a good subtotal, so he's ready to get after it. It's about as strong as 280 can
Oh
be.
yeah, I mean, blink and you miss it, right?
Yeah, it's a nice lift. He's definitely got a lot in the tank. It's going to be interesting to see where they go from here. I'll pull up some data from some of his recent comps to see how he's gone on his deadlift.
Yeah, I mean, it's got to be minimum 15 to 20 kilo jump there for me.
You would expect so. Looks like we had a 280 opener that looks like it was perhaps missed on a technicality, plus 20 to 300, and then a plus 20 missed for 320. So he probably has a lot of redemption going on here, and I'd expect him to maybe track that 300, clean that up, and make a choice to hit a big PR on the deadlift today and add to that already PR'd subtotal for a PR total. Lots of words there, but he's doing well, and we're excited to see Truong come out with a strong second here on 245.
Have the wrong lifter coming in here.
There, that actually, sorry, that's an error from me. We have Truong up here on the screen. I'm sure we'll get a fix on that shortly. That looked like it was a 215, didn't it? Yeah.
Yeah, we're back to the top there. Scoreboard's just frozen up on us for a second. That's all right. Okay, we're back on speed now. Angus Ellicott.
So you actually want 245 on the bar.
Josh, you hit 215. Next up, we're expecting Truong to come out for a 245. And this sort of thing will happen from time to time, nature of tech. It's important that we just get on top of it and keep the competition running, which will happen shortly.
Okay, that looks right to us. 245 on the bar. We fixed it.
All right. Looks like we're back in action. Very quick fix there. Well done to the tech team over there. 245 for Truong. Let's see what he's got.
currently at 590. This will push him up into the 600s.
It's like a good lift, 2-1 there.
Okay, now we have Angus coming out. 250 kilos loaded on the bar, 15 kilo jump.
Yeah, cool. $250 is a 15 kilo increase from the opener. Looking strong and smooth. Coach looks happy. Aiden Potts doing a little dance on the side there.
Just waiting for lights there. They are.
3 white lights, clean lift, ready to take it on for the third attempt. Well done. Next we've got Callan coming out for a 255 deadlift. We're seeing this 15 kilo jump looking pretty normal on this particular flight.
And the bar is loaded.
It's looking dialed in, fired up, ready for a strong second. Lots of support from the crowd here. Some work for him there, and he's unfortunately missed his second and will likely come out to try that again for his third. You'll notice we have 2 different stances in the deadlift here. One is the conventional deadlift and the other is the sumo deadlift. The sumo deadlift is with the hands inside of the legs, and the conventional is the opposite, the hands outside of the legs. Ultimately, again, this comes down to lifter preference and lifter leverages. There are strengths and weaknesses to both. Some people are stronger in conventional, some people are stronger in sumos. So we'll see a bit of a variance here. In the 105, generally, it's a little more common for the conventional. We tend to see the lighter weight lifters go for the sumo, but there are, of course, unique exceptions to that. So we see a few sumo lifters here today. Smooth second there, solid lockout. Now, there were some problems on the opener with 260 there, so it'll be interesting to see if the referees were a little happier with this one. Unfortunately not. We have 2 reds with 1 white, so this is something that's a bit of a split decision, but unfortunately not in the lifter's favour in this occasion. So I would expect a repeat again to really make sure that we can lock down that third deadlift.
Okay, Matthew Shield coming out now. 270 on the bar.
So a massive increase there from 240 to 270 for Matthew.
Yeah,
If
shoulders.
I'm reading that correctly.
He got 1 red on his opener for shoulders. So let's see if he can correct that here.
Yeah, he's looking good through the lift. That is going to be an interesting one to see whether he can call on that lockout. It doesn't look like he's quite all the way through on that.
Looked like the hips weren't quite through from this side.
He's managed to get through with 1 red. He's managed to get through with 1 red, so referees were mostly happy. I think that's one
pretty fair.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he did get through to a locked out position. I was particularly interested to see whether that elbow position and whatnot was going to be something that the referees were happy with, and they are 2-1. So happy days.
Yeah, I definitely think on our side it was a bit soft, but
yeah, that might be
the other side was, I think, locked out.
That might be the referee
call.
gave that call. So again, it really matters where you're sitting.
Absolutely.
Why it's really important we got 3 refs here making those calls. So well done on hitting that second. Hopefully we can see a little bit more on the third. And do the same thing because you got 2 whites.
Absolutely. Here comes Christopher.
Christopher coming out for a plus 15, classic jump. See a sumo deadlifter. And I think we're going to see a hook grip here. Yep. Talk about that in a minute. He's worked through that nicely. Wow. And I can't see anything wrong with that.
No, look very strong. Yeah, 3 whites there for Chris.
So again, we see the conventional and the sumo, and the grips we see mixed grip or we see hook grip. We don't see a lot of actual double overhands, but the hook grip has a double overhand. You'll see the knuckles at the front in both hands. This is a commonly used weightlifting grip. Actually, it's where the hook grip started, because weightlifters need to have double overhand to catch a clean or catch a snatch. But it's used now a lot in powerlifting, more commonly in the sumo deadlift. It can give some positional advantages. It's actually the thumb that's wrapped around the barbell and then locked in. And it's a little bit painful to execute, but you'll see some lifters using the hook grip. And every other lifter, for the most part, will use a mixed grip, which I'm pretty sure Josh is going to use here. One hand over, one hand under, and it's the more common grip used. 302, moving very smoothly. I think he'd be happy with that 302. A little bit heavier than his previous second attempt, so I think that would be a competition PR for Josh. And I'll be interested to see what he can take from there. What does he look like he has to you?
Yeah, I mean, that's a 22.5 jump from his first, and that's still like an opener almost to me. So I think he's got another 15, probably 10 to 15.
Cool. I would love to see him hit 10 to 15. I think the interesting thing to note is that it flew off the floor, but it was slow to lock out. And I think that we have to pay attention to the hardest part of the lift.
Yeah.
I think if you add 15 kilos to that final part of the lift, it'd be interesting to see. You know, I think that he definitely has a bit of room there. And also, like we've said so many times, execution can vary from attempt to attempt. So I'm very interested to see what he puts on. Do you know what he's hit in training?
I don't, mate, but I just noticed there that he did get one red from the center ref with a blue card, which is generally up down. So, yeah, to your point, that 10 kilos may emphasize that little sticking point, that little bobble a lot, and that could bring him unstuck. So, yeah, let's see what he adds.
I can see him over there talking to Dave, and it looks like he's pretty fired up, pretty keen.
He looks super confident. Yeah, absolutely.
I think sometimes he can get the knees locked out a little early sometimes, which can cause that bar dip. He probably needs to stay in it for a little bit longer at these heavier loads and make sure he pulls through really steadily.
Sure.
I know he does his rep work and really makes it move. And that's where the difference is in 100 kilos or 50 kilos, is that you got to make sure you stay with that load. So you don't have any, little silly mistakes like that which can take kilos off of you. So I really hope he can come out and lock that down.
Josh McKirky here for his third.
Josh here looking good, steady through. Looks like he's getting there.
Yeah, that looks like a good lift. 7.5 jump from his second.
From here, he looks solid. 2-1 good lift. He's going to walk away with that one. Now, we may have gotten a little bit of a call from one ref there on supporting or something like that. You can see he was pulling back onto the thighs as he was going up. There are a few rules around sort of cleanliness of the deadlift. You're not able to hitch. You're not able to support the weight on your legs. And so it's important that we recognize that some lifts can be missed even if they're locked out. Even if they're locked out and you're in the correct lockout position, there are things that can happen, down and up movement, which is hitching, or like I said, supporting and really rolling back onto the legs. These are things you'll see in sports like strongman, totally legal, but in powerlifting and the IPF, not so much.
Strong now coming out, 255, 10 kilo jump from his second.
So 255, modest jump. Would expect him to give this a good fight. Just a little bit too much there on the 255, unfortunately. So we'll be left with 245 off his second. Not a massive hit. I think that it's a tough call to make from 245 with the sumo deadlift at times, because you can have that sharp drop off like we spoke about with the bench press.
Yep.
I think that's probably the key consideration for sumo versus conventional deadlifters. Again, these are general sort of ideas, but we do see the sumo sort of drop off all of a sudden. There's a lot more balance requirements and little nuances of technique, whereas conventional has a little bit more of a steady drop off. It is a little bit more predictable.
Yeah, and I think it's one of those things where sumo is such a technical lift, and it can look absolutely great at slightly lower weights or in rep work, but it takes a lot to really dial it in when you get to those heavy singles. I think he may have just got his weight, looking at the replay there, might have just got his weight slightly too far behind the bar. Just didn't quite get his wedge maybe in the ideal position, and it's just enough to throw you off in sumo. It takes, it's not like conventional where you can just grind the hell out of it and hopefully it comes up. It just doesn't work for sumo.
Absolutely. It's almost like a little bit less easy to hide if you make a mistake. It's very exposing. Again, depends on the lifter. We have a 255 attempt going down here from Callum, who came out to it on his second and unfortunately wasn't successful. Can he change the odds and lock in this 255? For a moment there, I thought he was going to get that. He looked a lot better off the floor. But unfortunately, a tough ask when you have missed a lift. As we've alluded to, every kilo you lift matters, and the exertion of your lifts really matter. So unfortunately, no good there. 1 from 3 on the deadlift, which is always going to be a bit of a disappointing day, but something to learn from the experience and hopefully an improvement into the next competition. So well done to Callum on the rest of his lifts, coming away with a 152, and a 240 squat.
Yeah, and it's a small flight as well, which is often, some of these lifters, they may take their full 10 minutes between lifts, 15 minutes between lifts in the gym, and you come into a competition like this where you may only have 8 people in your flight. That can be a very fast turnaround.
Absolutely, and that's probably one of the biggest variables when it comes to time, plus how the spotting crew is going. The spotting crew is going to be a little slower. Today they're very quick, and so that changes the pace of the comp, and you have to be adaptable. And so the best thing in training is to do some stuff with shorter rest times from time to time. Otherwise, it can be a bit stuffed on the day. That looked very, very easy. Maybe a little bit easier than they had anticipated, which means there's some kilos left. We did get 1 red, but a good lift. And it's always mixed emotions when you hit a lift like that and effectively sandbag, which means to kind of go lighter than you actually could have. I guess making a lift is great, and maybe that was a PR. I haven't checked. But a really lovely 265 there, and the boys sounded very pleased with that.
Yeah, and just needs to be careful on his next one if he does get it and he gets excited again, just to really make sure he locks in that top. He just did bobble there at the top just that little bit. I hate to see him lose that lift.
Yeah. We have got the thirds down there. There's a third.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we're up to third. Sorry.
Again, we want to stay.
It's been a long day.
We just want to stay. Again, we're going to work backwards. We're going to go back to first after this. Kevin here opting for 267. What has happened there?
Just grip just gave up on him there, unfortunately.
Okay, so I think that Kevin came out without much to lose, as he had already bombed on his day with the bench press, as we saw earlier. So having missed a couple of deadlifts, they probably thought to themselves, look, let's just see what we've got. They came out for the 267, wasn't there. Okay, well, we're already out. So unfortunately, not the day I'm sure that Kevin and coach planned for, but those are the days that happen from time to time, and hopefully we can get some lessons out of that and see him come back much stronger and better next Nationals.
Yeah, absolutely.
And the bar is Matthew.
All right, here comes Matthew Shield now. 10 kilo jump.
Interesting strategy here, going plus 30, plus 10. Maybe the 270 didn't quite move as planned, because you would normally expect, not the same jump, but something a little bit more similar than this. In saying that, plus 10 is going to be a solid ask. Let's see how he goes. Not quite there today at the 280 kilos. Got to the middle. Wasn't able to work through. Just a little too heavy for him today.
Yeah, look, the 270 was up there in terms of exertion. So I think maybe trying for PR there. And you're only at Nationals once. You're only going to have this crowd once. Well, this year anyway. You might as well go for it.
Absolutely. Looks like Josh is coming out for 310, which is a 7.5 kilo increase from his 302.5. Now, in this flight, looks like Josh is leading ahead of Christopher. Josh currently on 725.
Yeah, Josh definitely in the lead in this flight, but we do have to add those back together at the end once we finish the other flight.
Absolutely.
But look, Josh in a good position. He could end up placing quite highly.
Yeah, it's almost, with the 2 flights, it's almost like 2 separate contests sometimes.
Yeah.
Where you might get some of these guys leaking into the other flight, but more so they're almost battling with each other. So I'm sure this is a high-stakes pull for Josh in his mind, competing against the boys here. He's looking good for it, going all the way through. He's done much better there. I'll be expecting whites from this.
Absolutely, that was a very good lift. Very
Beautiful 310. So we looked at it. You saw maybe 10 to 15. I think you probably were pretty close to the money there. He took 7. Looked like he had a little bit more in him. He was fighting through that, but he really looked quite comfortable throughout the pull. So he probably took something that's a little bit more conservative to lock it in, because I believe that's a 10 kilo PR for him on the deadlift. So he'd be very pleased with that. And also to walk away and go, hey, if the demand was there, I had a touch more.
Yep.
considering the day he's had, I think it was like 10 kilo PR on bench, something like that. So he's probably walked away with almost 20 or something like that on his total. You can't be
That's
unhappy
insane.
with that. So
Yeah.
well done to Josh there on pulling through with that great 310. And that is also
Absolutely.
9 for 9 day, which is great to see. He's still coming through with 310,
Oh, wow. So,
taking a
yeah.
massive jump.
And this will put him in first in this flight. But again, we do have to add those back in.
Interesting move here with the plus 25.
Taking to 737.5, if my math is correct.
Well, yes, 5 ahead of Josh. He must be playing for some of the other placings. Well, Jesse has a point to prove. He looks solid there. It's going to be a 50-50 on the lockout position.
They look pretty good from our angle. Yeah, 2 to 1.
1 red, which is what I saw, but he's gotten the 2 and he's walked away with it. What a tremendous lift with a huge jump from a second. I love to see that.
Yeah, and let's see now as we start to get into the second flight, we'll see where that starts to place him, because it's not unheard of. See it at Worlds quite a bit where they have A and B flights where all of a sudden, out of nowhere, someone will end up in that on that podium.
And a lot of the time, people aren't checking the other flight
Correct.
from this sort of, call this the prime time flight, right? A lot of the time, people aren't looking over their shoulder enough to look at the other flight. So that could really play in their favor here. Now, to talk through the top 5 here from subtotal, we've got Yanni on 514, currently leading the charge. We've got Tom on we've got Murdad, sorry, on Tom on 505, my mistake, coming second at this point. Murdad on 504.5, just behind. Michael in 4th place at 495 and Sam at 477.5. We can see that there is a lot of room for movement here. It's going to be really important how all these lifters and coaches play not only their openers, but their seconds, where that jostles them for placings, and what that demands of lifters at the final pull. What I think we'll likely see is Michael stepping back, putting some placeholder in there for his 3rd deadlift to stay last lifter, and then changing once everyone's done to pull what he needs for the win. Whether he has it or not is going to depend on what lifts these other lifters make. The tougher decisions come in for Tom, Yanni, and Murdad, who have to figure out what lift to take to be leading coming into Michael having the opportunity to close the door. Because a little bit too heavy and missing, or a little bit too light and not going quite enough to push out Michael, these are hard decisions to make. So we're going to see the pinnacle of the powerlifting experience here in the 105 weight class in the deadlifts, with every decision mattering, there being a lot of weight, and someone lurking in the corner in Sam, who is a 477.5 subby with a 320 plus pull.
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be tight. And look, good lifts there for both Anthony and for Joel on their openers. Yeah, well, it's it's going to be exceptional when we get down to these last few deadlifts.
So we got Daniel coming out 275, which is a really strong start for him. I do think that the performance from Sam, now being 30 ahead on subtotal with Daniel, who Daniel beat Sam at States. Sam's really come out and made a statement with his subtotal and made it a really hard ask for Daniel here to now catch up, considering that Sam's opening at 300 on the deadlift. So Sam's not going to run away with it in terms of this little battle. And unless something happens, because anything can happen.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be watching every attempt here. We've seen random stuff happen. We've seen weirder things occur at national events. It's all going to matter. So stay tuned and get excited.
Yeah, I think that's it. You can't count any chickens today. I mean, on paper, yes, it looks like Sam has probably run away with it if he gets his opener, but that's the big if he gets his opener, right?
If.
And then how's the jump? So, I mean, Sam's having an incredible day. But again, I think that top 5 is almost all within striking range. Anyone misses a lift or two here, it's anyone's game.
Yanni opening at 280, and we have Tom Chaplin later opening 12.5 above that. Interesting.
Very quick there for Yanni.
Strong 280 opener. I note the differences in openers between Yanni and Tom, because these two and Murdad, who is going to be opening at, and I don't mean to discount Murdad, it's just I have not been looking at him very closely. I keep on sort of mentioning these 3, but again, Murdad, Tom, and Yanni, their openers, their seconds are really going to matter with this tussle.
Yeah, we just don't have much idea where he's at.
Yeah, I'm really keen to see this opener, this 287. How does it move? Is this a 287 opener of someone who's going to pull 320 today? Is this a 287 opener of someone's going to pull 300 today?
Absolutely.
Let's have a look and see how this opener looks.
It's the big unknown out here today. He's doing extremely well.
Strong start. And hate to say, that lift gave me no more info than I had before, because it was smooth, it was strong, it wasn't particularly fast, but it definitely looked like he had a lot of kilos in the tank. So thanks so much for that opener, because you gave us nothing. And you gave your competitors nothing too, which is a strength. So look, it's going to really be interesting to see what selections are made here. I think that with Yanni being 9 kilos ahead of Tom and 9.5 kilos ahead of Murdad, he can afford to start back a little bit lighter like he has.
Yep.
Although Tom is looking like he's going to kind of settle that difference on his opener, whereas Murdad hasn't quite done that. So it'll be interesting to see how that tracks.
Ooh.
A little bit
Taj,
of a flip there with Taj.
And again, sometimes that's just nerves on the opener. It moves faster than you're expecting, and you just have that little roll forward at the top.
Yep. So again, the ruling here, everyone, would be a downwards movement of the bar. That slight blip as we're getting to lockout. It's okay if it stops and keeps moving, but if it moves down and forward, that's going to be reds.
And look, I think, knowing Jacob, knowing Taj, I think they'll go up from there. It is his first nationals in the APA, but the strength is clearly there.
Yeah, I'd
I've seen
agree.
him pull a lot higher in training.
I'd agree.
And sometimes just that heavier weight slows the bar down a little bit.
Yeah,
And
we saw
little
that
clip
with
can go
Josh
away.
earlier. We saw that
Absolutely.
with Josh earlier, so I tend to agree there. Now, Tom's deadlifts have looked particularly good this prep. I believe he missed 323 to go 823 and beat the New South Wales boys at Queensland State. So we have a big deadlift draw card here, and he is looking as good as ever on that 292.5. He's moving with some serious speed. So you'll expect a solid jump here from Tom to really just set himself up to see how things play out. Ideally, he hits a second that's fast enough that makes it really hard for his competitors to tell, but high enough that allows him to make the appropriate jump to push the others to make lifts.
Yep.
In the ideal world, he does something heavy enough to put him in that first place and demand something of Michael, but Yanni and Murdad are going to have something to say about that.
And so Taj has actually locked in a 7.5 kilo jump there. He's put 310 on the bar for his second.
17.5.
Yeah.
17.5 kilo jump. That's interesting. I think that's a sound move in the context of the day.
Yep.
And the error that was made. And I think all the points you made will probably hold up.
Here comes
Michael
Michael.
starting with 300. Big deadlift draw card of the session. And he looks solid. His position looks really nice. 300 there. He's done a 310 for reps in training with reset. So 300 is a really routine load for Michael. I would expect him to go plus 20 here.
Yep.
And then to open himself up for another potential plus 20, kind of like what he was alluding to at state comp. But I'm keen to see what they actually do.
Like
Sam?
you said, he'll load what he needs.
Absolutely, and he's wanting to put himself in that position to load what he needs. And you can already start to tell, like we said, the coaches are going to be watching all of the lifters, and Michael's coach is going to be guessing what his competitors have when he's sort of figuring things out.
And speaking of competitors, here comes Sam.
Sam's on a bit of a hunt. 300 to start.
Oh, wow.
He's done a lot more than this in training, and he looks very strong today.
Yeah, that provided little resistance for Sam.
300 gives him 777.5. It's very feasible to see Sam go over 8 here.
Yeah, 22.5. I think that's in range. Yeah, absolutely.
I would expect to see him get very close on his second, probably go just under 8. And then if he has the opportunity to pull for a placing or something like that, he'll definitely do that. And it's likely that he will be the second last to pull, unless Tom Chaplin has something to say about that. And we see a 322 being posted there, which is 800 on the nose from Sam in the second attempts.
Okay, good call. Here comes Anthony now for his second. 10 kilo jump to 275. Anthony currently on 695 total.
He's done well there.
Looking to push over the 700 with this. A little sort of sticking point there on the thigh. Let's see what the refs have to say. Little bobble.
There
Yeah,
was a
2-1.
moment. There was a moment, and the head ref seemed unhappy with it, with the red light, but 2-1 got it. from here, felt that he managed that well. The head ref has the best view in the house, though, and they're going to be just directly watching that barbell. If it dips for a moment, it's over. They got the red light.
Yeah.
So he's gotten away with it there. Hopefully, he can just consider that for the next.
Yeah, absolutely. And the whole bar has to go up and down, not just one side. So it's he'll correct that on the third.
That's right. It's that global barbell moving down, not drifts or tips. However, like we mentioned earlier, a side ref will be looking at that part of the bar, so
Absolutely.
he may give you one, but hopefully you get away with it if it's not an actual global downwards movement of the bar. Call here from Joel.
He comes out and just rips and rips.
Unfortunately, not able to hold on at the top. Can be really tough to hold position. Sorry, it can be really tough to hold onto a barbell grip-wise if you're losing position. The whole body's linked, so if we're losing position in one spot, it can really place stress down on the arms, down on the hands, and that's what we've seen happen here. Unfortunately, that's extremely close to being a good lift. It's definitely a little too much today.
Yeah, probably moments away from getting that little bit more lockout and then getting the down command, but just grip couldn't quite hold on today.
That's right. In these moments, we are talking half a kilo, 1 kilo. As we've already recognized, you've got to take a 2.5 kilo jump unless you are attempting a record. So you are bound by that, and it's important that you consider that in your attempt selections. We've got Daniel Felstein here looking at a 295 plus 20 on his opener. As always, making it look very clean. He's got a bit of room there. Steady movement. Looked easy enough. I'll be interested to see what he looks at for his third attempt.
Yeah, again, he's one you can't judge on speed. I think all day, all of his lifts are very controlled, and so you can't really judge him on speed. Probably a bit more in the tank. That pushes him up to 742.5 for the day.
Completely agree. Now, we see Murder coming out for a 300. I think when we see these attempt selections, we're starting to see where the chips may fall. I think that it's a little bit of a hard ask on a plus 12 to see Murdad pull something that asks much of Michael in his top end. But that's yet to be seen. Sometimes we see some of the jumps like what we saw from Christopher, I think, with a bigger jump from second to third. So anything can happen. But let's see how this 300 moves.
Yeah, and this will push him up to just over the 800 mark if he's successful.
804.5 if we get this. Very solid. A little bit of forward movement of the barbell as we come off the floor. For a slight little positional readjustment as he went through, but he handled it beautifully. Looks like he's got a bit there to give.
Yeah.
I wonder if he has as much as he jumped from 1 to 2, or whether he'll take something slightly smaller.
I mean, bar speed didn't really slow. Tiny a little bit slower off the floor, but we expect that from Sumo. He stuck with it, and then boom, it popped up. So, yeah, not sure. I think at least the 7.5 to 10 potentially.
Yeah, we have commented that Sumo can drop off all of a sudden, so it'll be interesting to see how that goes. We've now got Yanni taking 20 kilo increase, which is a really solid increase for him relative to his 312 best at States, I believe. So it should just really set him up for a nice deadlift PR and to really push the ladder with this competition. Let's see how 300 moves on this deadlift. He's looking locked in.
Well, he moves quite well.
He's moved really nicely there. There's a little bit of bar rolling in the hands at the lockout, but he looked to hold on to it pretty well.
Yeah, and I mean, that will push him plus 20.
3 white lights.
Plus 20 on his 794, so take him up to, what are we looking at, 814?
814 there from Yanni now sitting.
Okay. Taj Smith out now. We've seen him slightly bobble at the top of his 292.5. No issue with strength. Him and his coach have opted for a 7.5 jump to 310. And that looked much better there from Taj.
Pretty much what we commented on happened there, where the load actually settled and then his pattern.
Oh, 3 white lights.
Which can happen sometimes. And so it's important, like we've commented a few times, to know your lifter, know yourself as a lifter, and understand that sometimes it's important to stay if you miss a lift. Other times you can keep moving forwards. So I'm coming out for a 310. which will project him to be a little bit ahead of Yanni by a kilo. Now, Tom weighed in at 104.6. Yanni weighed in at 104.6, which is rare.
Who's got the lower lot number?
That's right. So if I look over at lot numbers, I'll find that shortly. What will happen with the lot numbers, it will only affect things if they're pulling the exact same number.
Yeah.
Otherwise, the way it works if your body weights are exactly the same is whoever gets the total first, if you tie, wins. So you have to beat someone who's the same body weight as you. You essentially can't tie them to win. You have to beat them because they achieve the total first.
Yeah, it really only matters when it comes down to that last deadlift.
Yeah, and it's rare because it only matters if the total's the same and the deadlift's the same and the body weight's the same. Because if someone comes out and you're pulling for 800, yada yada yada, and you're both pulling 300 to make 800, the first person does it, gets it, they get 800. Second person doesn't change, gets 800, they come second. That's the mistake that can be made if you don't know the rules.
Absolutely. And we've seen that happen multiple times, even on the international stage, because it does happen so rarely.
That's right. These are the deep, dark areas of the rule book that you only probably find out through stuffing it up. So we have Michael here looking at what I assumed he would go for, which is a 322nd, exactly what he did at States. And he's made that move really, really well. He's got a smile at the top. His grip looks solid. And I think he'd be walking straight off that platform saying what I said. He's shaking the number one around. I think we all know what that means. He's ready to pull for the win here, and he's looking ready to go.
Yeah. He will just load whatever's needed.
That's what you can expect from Michael. He's said it. I interviewed him a little bit ahead of a podcast that we did before Nationals, and he literally said, I'm going to win. I'm going to load exactly what I need for the win. End of story. So his mindset is clear on his mission. And unless the other lads are able to do something to demand more than what he can pull, he will have the final say.
Yeah, and look, given the size of the jumps that he's capable of taking, that's going to be a big ask today. But let's see.
Absolutely.
Anything can happen on third deadlifts, as we've seen all weekend. The caliber of lifters here at Nationals this weekend is insane.
A nice big hype up here for an 800 total attempt from Sam.
Wow.
Very strong attempt there. And he sailed into the 800 club with style.
Yeah, I mean, it's late on a Saturday afternoon here in Newcastle, and a big crowd has all of a sudden appeared in the venue to watch this final deadlifts of the 105 kilo class here at the inaugural APA Nationals. This is the open age category event. We'll have juniors and masters back here at Walls End Diggers later in the year.
So when we look at the 105s now rolling into third deadlifts, we have Michael Rand, 815, Tom Chaplin, 815, Yanni Morcelis, 814, Murdadad Akbari, 804.5, and we have Sam Forsberg, 800, saying hello, podium guys. So it's going to be really cool to see how this plays out. But Anthony coming out here for his 285. He's moving a little bit more through that lockout phase than the previous one. It'll be interesting to see what the referees make of that.
Yeah, a couple little bobbles there, but they might have been moves forward more so than down.
Unfortunately, the referees felt like that was up and down. We had 2-1, so it's a missed lift there, unfortunately. So a few things that are important to note when it comes to where I feel the battle is across Tom, Michael, and Yanni. So Tom and Yanni, we've already said, are 104.6. They're going to have to consider lot numbers if the deadlifts are the same. Michael's sitting pretty at 103.65. So not only does he have the bigger deadlift, if he's able to tie Tom or Yanni, whoever is leading, to win, just like he did at States.
Here comes Joel Mullen now. Couldn't quite hold on to 292. Yeah, and he's just spent now, unfortunately. Built up too much fatigue after almost locking out 292.5 in his second. Grip just wasn't quite there, unfortunately. But good day out in what I'm pretty sure is his first national event.
The other important thing to consider, we've spoken about chips. So Yanni and Murdad both have a chip on squat. And the current standard for the deadlift in the 105s is 337.5, which is awfully convenient for Michael as someone who could potentially pull up to 340. What that means is that he already has a bodyweight advantage, and what he will need to do, let's say he's challenging Yanni, is he will need to chip that 1.5 kilos that Yanni chipped on the squat for the 311.5, I think.
Yep.
And he will just need to add that. So let's say it was 337.5 plus the 1.5. He will actually need 339, and he'll have to make sure he makes that decision and does the maths correctly. But he does have the chip to cover the previously made chips of the squatters, Murdad and Yanni.
Yeah, and that could be make or break, right? That difference.
Wow.
2.5.
Wow, that was Murdad with a 307. That was phenomenal.
He's moved that very well. Like we said, we expected somewhere around the 7.5 to 10 kilo jump there, and he was able to nail that 7.5 kilo jump for his third. We see here Yanni now coming out with a 7.5 kilo jump as well. 307.5 also loaded on the bar for him. Looking to push his total into the 820s.
You see Murdad hit 812 there, and so he's essentially settled for fourth.
Yeah, absolutely. Because currently Yanni in third. This will temporarily put him in the first if he gets it. But third looks like it's secure.
An interesting choice from Yanni and coach, as they have pulled a little bit more at states. So I'm interested to the tactics here and how that plays out throughout this day.
Yeah, again, is it a play to hold on to podium?
Given see how he goes here. It's actually missed that 307, so it was a good choice compared to going for what he'd previously done. They were clearly aware that his deadlift was feeling a little down today. So he's ended up there for now in third place with 814. Must be recognized that Sam is at 800, able to pick whether he hunts for fourth or hunts for third at this point.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're talking a big lift.
Yeah. I mean, he's going to need that 15 kilo jump.
Yeah. So because Sam is 103.15. So say he was going to try and get after Yanni, he'd need to equal his total. He won't have chip advantage. So he'd need to go from that 320. Let's watch this lift first.
Rips and rips to the knee. Oh, gets it through the lockout. Looks pretty good from our angle, but let's see if the judges like it. And they do. 3 white lights there.
So essentially Sam had a 322.5 for his second. He needs to go plus 15 because he has no chips available to him to beat Yanni. So he need to go 337.5 to claim third place. And I would bet that they will look to load that. He would be able to go 2.5 less to hunt fourth over Murdad. Let's see how this plays out. Now we have Tom Chaplin lifting next, looking to go plus 7.5 from his 310 to 317.5. If he hits this, he's able to put himself in an 822.5 position. And that would then demand Rand to pull at least 7.5 more than what he previously did. We're in a similar position from where I'm sitting as what we had at States, where it does not look like Rand is going to be demanded at this point to pull what he has said. He thinks he can pull V4.
Okay.
So, plenty can change still. You're allowed to change your deadlift opener twice.
Yep.
So we can still see changes yet. Let's see how we go with Tom in a 317.5. This is going to be a great finish to this 105 session.
And those changes can go all the way until that bar is loaded call.
That's right.
So the only rule is that the bar can't go down in weight from the previous attempt. But they can drop their what they've got locked in as long as it doesn't go below the previous lifter. So we may see some gamemanship here in the final moments of this session.
Now it'll be interesting to see how this goes for Tom. I think he's good for it. Will he have room? Will it be hard? These are the questions we want to know about. 317.5 going up, and he seems to have done that very smoothly. Now, this is one of those catch-22 moments when you're not pulling large. If he has managed to go 317.5 to push forward to 822.5, which does demand that Rand makes his third. So you're always better off demanding that heavy deadlifter actually makes their third. but he had some room there. So that's the catch-22. He could
Yeah.
have pushed that a little bit harder, and that would have demanded even more. And this is what you have to deal with. This is the gamble that you're making.
Absolutely.
You're trying to get as much out as you can. The question is, one, have they pushed Rand enough to beat him, or will he come out and clean up this 327.5, which looks like what they put in for their third here?
Yep.
And also, what will Sam do? Who will he be targeting?
Absolutely, and you see his Tom's coach Kelly there just put her hands on her head after that deadlift. I think she knew straight away.
Aware that
damn,
there was
he had more.
Aware that there was more. Absolutely.
Will that come back to bite him? Let's see. Here comes Taj now, 325, a 15-kilo jump up from his second. He is absolutely psyched up here. 310 gave him no trouble. Is it everything he's got, but it's just not going to go past that knee today.
Just a little bit too much for him today, unfortunately. Still walked away with a 310. So next we have Michael, who'll be coming out to a 327.5. He's not going to need to do any more than that to win this competition.
Wow.
He has 815. Tom Chaplin has 822.5. This is the exact same total as what was hit at the state championships. Michael is going to need to hit this 327.5 to secure the win.
So this will put him to 822.5 as well, and win on body weight.
Correct. So he's lighter than Tom, hits 822.5. He wins by the smallest margin you can win by.
And look, given how 320 moved, I mean, this should be there every day of the week, but you never know.
If I was a betting man, let's go Michael Rand. Reigning champion, looking to lock in another national title here with 327.5.
Just taking his time, resets. Can't afford to miss this.
This is it. Moment of truth. He's locked out. He's held that. He's vocal. He's happy about it. And a beautiful, beautiful competition from the reigning champ, showing his time's not over yet.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just held it at the top for an extra couple of seconds just to show that there was plenty more in the tank.
Right, and we have plenty of new lifters coming into this 105 class, but Michael has come in and shown that he can execute. He showed up and he produced the kilos in the subtotal. He showed up and he did what was needed for the win. Now, we have some moves being made.
Oh, 5th to 1st if he's successful here, Sam. Just put a change attempt in for 345 on the bar. Look, it's a big ask, but the 22.5 jump from 300 didn't worry him. Let's see.
So here we have a clutch attempt. Sam is forgetting about third, forgetting about second, forgetting about fourth. He's going for the dub.
I mean, to quote, Toretto in Fast and Furious, if you're not first, you're last. So he might as well go for it. You're only here once.
He's looking sharp today. He's looking as strong as he's looked.
He's had an incredible day. PRs in squat, in bench. Can he now nail an absolutely Hail Mary deadlift?
You've got to ask yourself the question, has Michael Rand overlooked Sam by not going heavier on that 327.5? Has he opened the door for Sam to hit this 345 and take the win?
We'll see. Oh, my God. It looks good from here. Let's see what the judges like it.
The biggest shake-up of shake-ups.
This will be incredible. 3 white lights.
3 white lights for Sam Forsberg. Snatching first place. Look to not have had really a kilo in the tank. The perfect selection.
Oh, wow.
As mentioned as he walked out, 327.5 for Michael, looking easy enough to push him out, but the attempt was not made. And he has snatched it away, that first place, in probably the biggest upset of the weekend.
And we've had some upsets this weekend.
Absolutely.
Well,
At the close, we have Sam Forsberg, first place, 822.5. Michael Rand, second place, 822.5. Tom Chaplin, third place, 822.5. And Yanni Marcellus, 814, fourth place. What a competition. What a spectacle. This is the peak of powerlifting here, Australian Powerlifting Alliance Open National Series. We hope you enjoy the 105 class. We hope you enjoyed the major shake-up at the end there. This is what it's all about. Thank you for being with us, and we hope to catch up with you again soon.
Thanks, everyone. See you in the morning for the under 84 kilo women and 84 kilo plus, where we may see Nat Lale push the biggest female deadlift in the IPF even further than the 272.5, which he currently holds. See you in the morning.